You're right. There might have been a sound.
Okay, got it.
You might need more chairs.
This is pretty awesome, right? I'm going to do it this way. I'm trying to do it this way.
Okay. Yeah. That may be
Yeah. Well, let's see. Yeah, but we're streaming it for the people at home. Trying. We're working it. It is a good problem. Live on my channel. Good. Yes. You're the best. Oh, good. Here we go. This is what I wanted. Now, okay, I'm going to spin this around. For anybody who is not here, we are all going to be, there's Terry MacArthur. Here's the class. For anyone who isn't here. Yeah. You're missing this. Awesome. Okay, now here. I'm on. Did you see? Oh, you are so good, Scott. Go. Yeah. Okay. Yay! We got this. Oh, that's okay. Good. I think they can see that. I can zoom up on it too. Look at this. I can zoom up. Nice, right?
Don't listen, but
Just put another hash mark in that dollar sign. Do it. And you a second.
Well,
It's super SUPER dollar mark.
T.
Lower case 21.
Super Force 21. It does? Can you see how many people are logged in?
No, it says one, me, logged in the back.
Oh.
It's gonna be challenging to see. I may be in film.
Just pretend you're not. It is that witness protection program. That's right.
You can go to prison, just so you know.
Yes, I get to go to.
Okay,
It's all fun.
we're gonna go ahead and get started. Like anything else, this is gonna have startup problems because Carolyn last night changed this from Zoom to YouTube. So if the people at home don't get to see it, don't blame.
Blame.
That around and do a selfie. There you go.
Very high tech.
So the first thing, this is real exciting because this is the first time that we've gotten this many people in this room in a year and a half.
Yeah.
I mean, it's stunning.
Yeah.
So for me, part of the training when I went through it with this fine lady right here that's going to talk in a second, is that when you sit in a room like this, you all get to meet each other and start getting to interact. And I felt substandard. I don't know what the right word is, because when we're doing all this hyper and on Zoom, we really don't get to know each other face to face. So this is exciting to me personally. So, and to introduce you to Terry MacArthur, who's she doesn't like me wanting to brag about her, but she is one of the founders of Heartwood. And so if you want to know who's responsible for this, this is one of the people. And the reason it works so poorly is but no, it's I know too many people are very grateful for the work that she's put in. So this is somebody you need to know and should know. I'm going to start off with a public service announcement, because one of the things when we're getting near to the end of training is that a lot of you are logging in lots of good hours for training. It's also your chance to go ahead and get your AT hours. There's all those Team Men Tuesdays. There's all the stuff you see in the bulletin online to get your advanced training hours and do all your volunteer stuff. This is my public service announcement. So show the screen. This is like a Hollywood camera.
Camera woman.
One of my projects that I got involved in because of being up in Walker County is this Lake Livingston Conservation Project I told you all about. We're gonna have our first planting in a year and a half, just like this meeting is going slowly as we've gone through this struggle for the last year and a half. We're gonna have a planting July 31st, which is gonna be northeast of Huntsville for a morning. If you like stomping around in the mud and getting muddy and seeing a pretty part of the creek, which is part of the Lake Livingston complex, you're welcome to come. All you have to do to participate is send me an email so we can make sure you have directions to show up and get waiting lists. Because you do get in the water, you do get muddy. There's going to be Texas Parks and Wildlife, the Trinity River Authority boats, and I'm going to get a pontoon boat that's from the Carolina Creek Christian Camp that's going to let us use their facility. So,
Email address, Scott?
sorry?
Email address? It's not up here.
Training@gmail.com.
Oh.
They all know that. You don't know. Yeah, so it would be, since you all know how to reach me anyway, that would be the easiest way just to connect up. And you can come. But it's very informal. It's we've been doing this now since 2013, and we have a lot of fun with it. And so it's two of the pictures you see on there. That's the second right there. Is Scooter Lively, who runs the horticulture program at the Ellis unit, which partly helps you guys that want to do instruction at the unit. All you gotta do is raise your hand. Carolyn's gonna come in and do entomology in a couple of weeks. There's always an option to do stuff that's pretty rewarding. And then the guy that's third from the left or all the way to the right, this is one of the co-presidents of the Heartwood Lakes chapter. So this shows an example of a master naturalist sort of between two adjoining chapters, one in the East and one in Congress. So it's sort of special to me. If you don't know who Melissa is in the back, Melissa is your Heartwood membership director. She's the one that approves all your hours. You need to be really nice to her or she won't approve your hours. But she's also been tracking your hours, and so in the spirit of getting you to graduation and to getting certification.
Okay, so I went through everything last night just to kind of update all of you on your hours. And I have all your hours with me today. I know BMS had a few glitches the last 2 weeks, so a lot of people were having problems. But if you want to come talk to me later, I can tell you where you're at. You need 40 hours for the class. You need 40 hours volunteer hours and 8 hours AT. So AT is easy because it's all online right now. You can do the TM on Tuesdays and be the change, and it's all online, and it counts for any day that you take it. It doesn't have a expiration date. Now, many of you reached out to me this week about not getting your early hours in, your April hours. And I told you to put in the date, like today's date, and then go into the comments and put the actual date and which class it was. And we just approve them. So don't worry about the classes. On your volunteer hours, you have to worry about the 45 days. I can't change them with that. So if you missed logging any of the classes, let me know so we can get that taken care of and get all your hours. Most of you are at 34 hours on your class hours. So you just have this class. You'll have one more class after this? Or no?
2, 3.
Three.
Oh, okay. So you're most all caught up. So you're almost done. So we either are completely done. And where's Stephen at?
Stephen is right there.
He's got 240 volunteer hours. I just want to tell you, you're going to make a milestone before.
Oh, that's right. You're 10 hours away from your first milestone. Yeah.
Texas Water Specialist. And if you're doing Texas Water Specialist, I have a list for Terry. I'm going to email her later about where they're at. So any questions, just let me know and I'll update you. And I'm going to send out an email at the end of the classes that tells you where you're at for graduation. Okay.
So in the meantime, as we get started, we will take a break off and on. This is the first time we've ever had a professional camera lady. And we'll go on a walk about. During break, we do so much of this coffee. There's a bathroom outside and it's just keys to get in.
This one.
Hey, I want to make a comment about restrooms. So you need a key to get in because they're closed in public right now, but you have to lock it with a key when you come back out or else. It's closed. So please remember to lock it back.
Out further.
Well, since you brought up, I want to remind you that I'm doing a training to help you get certified as a Texas water specialist on Saturday, the 31st. I'm sorry, I'm conflicting with the plant thing, but it's going to be where I work. I work for Willis Township Environmental Services. It's not going to be in our parks and rec building. It's going to be in the aquatics building on Millennium Forest. In the back of the building is what they call the multi-purpose room. If you have not heard about it and want to get certified as a Texas water specialist as that Texas Parks and Wildlife program, it is really quite easy to do. To get initially certified and for recertification. If you show up on the 31st, the program is based on the Texas Water curriculum, and I will have a copy of the book for you that day. Denise said you couldn't come that day.
Yeah, because I was trying to get hours, so I registered to do a Mercer Arboretum.
Okay, well, I brought this copy so you have it. You're not going to be there that day. I appreciate that. You need this back? No, it's for you. And I'll have plenty of copies so that anybody else who wants to get that certification can pick one up on the 31st. It's a township thing, registration is required. So if you haven't seen my notice, you can go to the township website. Oh, no, not for that. Never mind. You can send me an email. I don't know where it's not going. So if you don't know my email address, it's long, but it's easy. I should have written it on the board. It's Texas Nature Lover at earthlink.net. It's easy, but it's long. So send me an email. Texas Nature Lover at earthlink.net. Thank you. Yes. You know, Jamie, if you'll send me an email and tell me you want to do that, I'll be happy to set a time to meet with you. I might ask you to come out my office or we might be here or something. I mean, if you can't make that date, don't sweat the small stuff, people. Just let me know. I'll work out a way to talk. Yeah.
About the water certification, if you haven't been able to attend the specific night classes that have been going on, and you watch the mapping classes still good?
So it's the same kind of issue as getting.
Repeat the question.
She's asking if you can watch archived Texas Water Specialist classes, online classes, and still count them. So the short answer is no, unless. So if some of us came to the room and we put it up and we all watched it together, we had a discussion about it, then you can count it as hours. You certainly may watch any and all of them just for your personal enrichment. Is that the phrase we're using each day? Personal enrichment. But no, you can't count them as your hours for certification. However, guys, the easy part about the water certification is you only have to have 8 hours of training to get certified, and you never have to have training hours again for that. Then you have to have 10 hours a year to recertify that. It's just volunteer training after that. In my personal opinion, I think they should require more training after that, but they don't. So
until unless that changes. Recertification is just volunteer hours. So you can get your training hours in and be doing volunteer work at the same time and start logging both of them. And it's easy to do, but once you've got your training done, yeah, attend more trainings, learn more stuff, won't hurt you.
Don't forget that once a month, Melissa Alderson does an online Texas Waters webinar. So you can apply for those. Now, we won't have any more after August, right?
Right.
But they start over in January.
That calendar year for water specialists, Texas Parks and Wildlife calendar year is September 1 to August 31. So we're bumping up against the end of the certification year, the recertification year. We're getting way too far into this. Well, I'll talk to you about it on the 31st if you want to come, or I'll talk to you about it individually. You can call me on the phone. I'll talk to you about it. We can exchange emails, whatever works. I'm happy to do if you want to get that certification. It's actually pretty easy. And the class you did on water in June, was it June?
Yeah.
Melissa, they should have been able to tick that water specialist box when they reported their training for that, shouldn't they?
If they don't request to be a Texas Water Specialist, they're not going to have a little box. I don't
Okay.
think. We had that discussion with Melissa Alderson. So if you're interested, shoot me an email and tell me that you want to do that program. I need to put that on your
List of things.
list of things you qualify for and such. So there's actually a tracking process. So it says your process of being certified. The hours, I'll see that, and I turn them over to Terry when that's done, so she knows we certified.
Today, and since your note said I want to get in the water specialist program, would they be able to retroactively carry that June class on water?
June, yeah, they should be able to, yes.
All right, so that was 3 hours right there.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, 4.
4. Okay.
If you did that, and I told you what I told you earlier, you put today's date in, you go into the comments, put, the information point, so I can see it. Because of the 45 days, we have to watch that. But we're giving you grace on the intern classes only, and that way y'all can all be done. And then I'll keep an eye on all of it and let Terry know that you certified. And again, if you want to come up into the office here or have a Zoom meeting on one of those webinars that Melissa Alderson did, that's totally doable. Yeah. We just have to know that you want to do it and discuss it. There were some really good ones, and then there's some that are hard to get through. But it's information. I mean, the last one was hard to get through. And then some of them you're like, wow, I never knew that information. So, but
It has a really wide range of higher and less quality presenters there. But they're part of her program, so they all count. They all count. Just before we all got sent home, yes,
Question, Terry, before we get off that subject. This class that happened on July the 31st,
yes,
is that
Training.
It's training. So
yeah, and we're gonna be there 3 hours, so that is 3 hours of training to get your initial certification, yes.
3 of the 8.
3 of the 8, yes.
Okay, great. I might change my mind and come and cancel Mercer, but I don't know.
Don't you ask me for another book?
I'm not. I'll bring it to you.
So, right before we all got sent home, Melissa Alderson and I, sorry,
Real quick, is that the Texas Water Specialist, does that count for your 8 hours advanced training, or is it separate?
no, you can, this is one place where you can double dip.
Okay,
You can do the volunteer work or the training work. You can do 80 hours that you report as a master naturalist and tick the box for water specialist. You can do volunteer hours as a master naturalist and tick the box for water specialist. So it's tricky. It's, 2 birds, 1 stone. We love that stuff. But anyway, this conversation I had with Melissa Alderson, I explained to her okay, I'm back up. my job for the township is I'm the water Nazi. I'm the water conservation specialist for the township. So pretty much everything I do is related to water pretty directly. And so she and I talked, and I said, if I create some language that the master naturalist and non-master naturalist can use it for hours, and she said yes. So when you come to stuff that I do for work, that's water related, you pretty much can count those hours, and I will help you with, especially if you show up on the 31st, we'll talk about exactly what that language is that you put in the box. But it has to reference the Texas Water's curriculum, or say that the volunteering is related to that. But it's a terrific program. I mean, it's really a good program, and it's really nice to have that additional specialist training, as well as the certification. So I'll make water nerds out of you. Yeah. So today, your schedule says we are going to talk about mushrooms and invasives and do some journaling. What we're actually going to talk about is interaction. And yes, as that little graphic indicates, we'll be even talking about some cellular level interaction. So all of us who live on this planet rely on ecosystems for goods and services. Somebody give me an example of one of the goods we get from ecosystems. Okay. Food. Now, give me an example of one of the services we get from ecosystem functions. Now, what else? Service we get from ecosystem interaction.
Fresh air to the breeze.
Oxygen, fresh air. I mean, it's kind of important for us to have oxygen, right? And that's one of the most basic of those ecosystem functions that we rely on and put so little value on. So how does that work? Somebody tell me how that works. Okay, Steve says trees convert CO2 to oxygen. Let's back up. Where did the tree come? So how did that seed get to be a tree? Okay, sun and water. Yeah, we plant up, somebody plant up, they drop to the ground. We're talking about interactions. What interactions ended up with that oxygen in the air? Start with the seed. Took your nutrients from the soil. How do the nutrients get in the soil? Oh, from the soil. How to get into the soil? Okay. All right. So oxygen in the air isn't a thing by itself, is it? It starts with interactions from the minute there's a seed. It starts actually before that, because somehow the nutrients have to get into the soil so the seed has them. I mean, think about it. If you were a seed, how darn great you would have to be to sprout. Oh my God, everything has to be right. The food has to be there, the moisture has to be there, the soil conditions have to be there for oxygen to be in the soil. So you pop up your little head, you got those little initial not leaves, that you can take in some sunlight, get a little bit of food made so that your real leaves can start growing. Interactions. It takes a lot of interactions before we get to the tree. And now tell me about that conversion process. Tell me about that. Photosynthesis. And voila.
So easy. I mean, I don't know how depth you want to get.
So interactions. If the tree wants to take carbon out of the air and break it down to use, it's got to use nitrogen to do that. Did we already have enough nitrogen? And the more carbon that's in the air, the more of that nitrogen carbon. So interactions. What, I promise you I wasn't going to walk around, but I'm walking around. I'm sorry. Okay.
You got
Okay.
to
Okay.
You're not seeing
Okay. So let's think about a tangent to this. Every time that tree is using up more nitrogen to break down the heavier carbon load, it's not using the same amount of nitrogen that it would normally use to put it into leaves, into flowers, into pollen, into nectar. And why do plants make those flowers with nectar and pollen? And why do pollinators do what they do? Why do they bother to come there? So that pollen, that nectar is their food because that's their protein source. But if there's so much carbon in the air that the tree is using up more and more and more of its nitrogen to keep it broken down to use it, it's putting less and less of that nitrogen into the flowers, into the pollen, into the nectar. So are pollinators, especially bees, are they getting as much nutrition? Are they getting as much protein from plants now as they did, say, 100 years ago? No, for sure. No, proven fact. That, people who you can give money to and they study stuff. They compared pollen samples from 100, 200 years ago to pollen samples now. The amount of nitrogen is far. So pollinators, they're in distress for a lot of reasons, changes. And that's one of them. I mean, it's no wonder pollinators are in trouble. They're just, losing habitat and every other thing. So interactions, people, interactions. So let's go back to that soil that tree is growing. That gives us the oxygen that we so badly need in everything. This is where fungi come. Oh my gosh, where would we be without them? Life on Earth would not exist were it not for fungi. Period. Full stop. So above ground, what are they doing? Somebody said it earlier. What are they doing above ground? They are. But what function are they performing that's valuable to us? Decomposition. Who are the other main decomposers along with fungi? There's three. Think a little broader than insects and bacteria. Well, bacteria, yes. Invertebrates. So that easy way to remember those three main decomposers, just remember when something dies, the FBI is on the scene. Fungi, bacteria, invertebrates, FBI. What about in the soil? Well, back up a minute. So those decomposers above ground are the reason we can even have this forest. Without those decomposers, there'd be so much dead stuff on the ground that nothing new could grow, and an entire forest system could crash. So they're not just important, they're vital. But now let's talk about underground. What's going on underground? Those same three kinds of organisms and others, what's going on underground? Well, they are breaking down more stuff. I mean, the top stuff is broken down to a certain point. It's pulled into the soil. It's still got to be more work done on it, and especially to do what in relation to that thing? Make the nutrients more bioavailable. Things, so why do trees do that photosynthesis thing? Why do they do that? So they're doing that, magic thing, photosynthesis thing, pull some sunlight, pull some moisture, pull some carbon, use that chlorophyll, voila. They're making sugars and starches to feed themselves. Is that all they need? Not by a long shot. But they are not, trees and plants are not super efficient at pulling things like nitrogen and phosphorus out of the soil. They need help doing that. So besides breaking it down to a much finer level, those decomposers make those nutrients more easier for trees and plants to be able to absorb them. But they go a step further. Fungi go a step further. Might be fungi like. They are, but what do they like to eat? What? They do, but what do they like to eat?
Sugar.
Exactly. Sugars and starches. So what are the trees busy making?
Sugar.
So guess where the fungi want to grow? Right. Plants, because everything that takes in food, whether it's making it itself, whether it ingests it and digests it, everything that takes in food has to give off waste. And one of the ways trees give off waste is to exude their excesses through the root system into the soil. They're busy all day making sugars and starches. So what do they mostly have to give off as waste? Sugars and starches. So if I'm a mushroom plant, I want to be right there next to that root. So when that tree is getting rid of its excess sugars and starches, I'm first in line to get it. Well, what does a tree get out of it? Those nutrients, especially things like nitrogen and phosphorus, that fungus is breaking down, absorbing, and can pass along immediately to the root system. Release it right there at the roots. Make it easier for the tree to take it in. Some fungi go a step further. They don't just grow around the roots, and a little bit, they might go into the outer covering of the root system, but there are others that actually grow within the roots into the cells and create structures that are called arbuscules within the cells of the plants, so that exchange takes place right there. It's instantaneous. So fungi are super important to us. Super important to us. We would not be here. Those last fungi that I mentioned are in the fossil records from, I should have changed my slide. I get stuck and I forget I have slides. Yay. I think we've already talked about almost all of this. Anyway, they're in the fossil records from up to 450 million years ago. There are a lot of mycology scientists who believe that they are the organism that made on Earth possible. They are the oldest terrestrial fungi. They're in the family Glomeromycota. And scientists truly believe that that's how plants learn to live on the planet. As some of the oceans were withdrawing, some of the algae trapped on soils, but there was enough nutrients, and the fungi that were there were able to interact with them to help them be supplied with those nutrients, and terrestrial plant life was born. Repeat the name, please. If I can say it. Glomeromycota. Well, no, I said it wrong again. Glomeromycota. They're hyphae, they're little root-like structures that the fungus grows are called hyphae. And the outside of the hyphae have a coating on them called glomalin. It's interesting stuff. It's very sticky. And as the fungus grows its hyphae through the soil, that sticky glomalin on the outside, here's where you get that phrase, gloms onto particles in the soil, sticks them together to create openings. As they clump stuff together, it leaves openings in the soil where oxygen and water can flow more readily. Glomeromycota. Don't make me sick. So, interaction. It's all about interaction. Well, so let's think about some of the things to compare fungi and invasive species, the other thing we're talking about today. We talked about decomposition, we talked about forest health, we talked about new vegetation can't grow without something to break down what's there. We talked about a little bit about the networking. We'll talk more about that. But all these interactions were created over not just millennia, but eons. Things have to co-evolve together to develop these interactions. So what happens when you throw some stranger into the mix? Something that's not a native to that ecosystem. What happens then? Disruptive. Very disruptive. And so let's think about some of the reasons why that works. Essentially, all plants are toxic to insects. Are toxic. So without these eons of co-evolution, which either the plant made adaptations or the insect made adaptations, plants and insects don't play well together. I mean, let's think about milkweed. Let's think about something we all know about because it's been buzzwords for how many years now? Last 10 years we've been talking about monarch butterflies and milkweed, declines. Milkweed is called that because if you break or damage the leaf or the stem, that milky, sticky, latexy stuff flows out. It can be very irritating to our skin, but it's a wonderful glue. Any insect tries to eat milkweed, their mouth parts are glued shut permanently, and they starve to death, period. So how do those monarch caterpillars? Good guess an enzyme breaks it down. Good guess. Moment, they have the same problem as any other insect. But the female monarch usually lays her eggs on the bottom of the leaves. If you looked at milkweed leaves, you see the eggs are usually on the bottom. But when the larva emerges from that egg, first thing it does is it eats the remnants of the egg because there's a little nutrition there that she left for him to kickstart some energy to get moving. And he crawls down the bottom side of the leaf, ends up right where that midrib, that central vein on the leaf is, where the leaf itself connects to the petiole, that little short stem that connects it to the stem. He chews through that central vein from the bottom, but not that vein, and the leaf sort of looks wilted. But he has effectively prevented the flow of that milky stuff from the stem into the leaf. How long did it take him to figure out how to do that? How long did monarchs take to figure out they could circumvent that stuff that was going to glue their mouth together and they were going to die by chewing through that? So we all know we have a problem with non-native plants, especially those that become invasive. Tell me a couple of things that might be going on. So if non-native invasives take over in an ecosystem where milkweed previously existed and they have overgrown, outcompeted, displaced, otherwise cause milkweed to be in far less abundance than it was before, especially during that fall migration of the monarchs heading into Mexico. You already know, because everybody knows about monarchs these days, is that it takes several generations of butterflies to actually end up in Mexico. The guys that leave from Canada aren't the ones in Mexico. It's 2, 3, sometimes even 4 generations before those last monarchs end up in Mexico. So these butterflies are flying along. They are getting old. They don't last long. They're wearing out. Their wings are tattered. The female's got to get her eggs laid so the next generation can take the next leap. And there's no milkweed. What's she going to do? She is going to die, but she's going to lay those eggs. She's going to find something else and she's going to lay those eggs. So privet has replaced milkweed. She lays her eggs on the privet. Has that caterpillar adapted the way to eat privet? So larva emerges from the egg, it eats the egg, remnants, tries to do its trick, doesn't work, tries to eat the leaf, it's toxic. Plants are toxic to insects unless they have developed some kind of relationship over the millennium to be able to adapt. So there's a whole generation of monarchs who are never going to make it to Mexico. And this thing is true with a lot of other species. Some of you might have heard me talking the other day about birds. You know, in summertime, especially here in our part of the country, summertime is breeding season for most of our songbirds. They've got to have a lot more protein for successful breeding during that season. Healthier eggs, healthier chicks, more successful. But what happens in winter? During fall migration and over winter, if we have resident birds stay here, what happens in winter? What do they need then? They need fat. Best thing they can get is those high fat content berries. Okay, well, you know, people don't like yellow holly. It's too common. It's bushy. It doesn't look good in my yard. Taking down all the yellow holly. I'm gonna put Chinese privet in its place. Chinese privet makes berries. The birds will still have berries. Are those the high fat berries that the birds need in the winter? No. The more tropical plants, even in our winter time, are still making high sugar berries. We need things like American beauty berry. He's talking about American beauty berry for the insect repellent aspect of the leaves. But those berries, think about when they get ripe, they start ripening fall going into winter. Johann Holly's berries start ripening fall going into winter. Things like hackberry. What else? Coral honeysuckle. A whole list of things that are native to this area and have co-evolved over the eons with the bird populations. And you think about bird migration patterns. They fly from the east, they fly from the west, they converge in the middle, they pass right through here on their way to cross the Gulf of Mexico to get to those warmer shores. They don't just do that randomly. It's because they know they can find those high fat berries right here on this pathway. Those berries, those fruits are the only thing they can build up their system, build up their fat reserve, build up their energy, and give them the ability to make that days-long flight across the Gulf of Mexico. They don't get to stop and rest. There's no place to get a drink. There's nothing to eat. When they launch from Pine Island down there, they're going to be days in the air doing nothing but fly, no rest. Okay, let's go load up on beauty berries before we do this. I can make it, but I can't find beauty berries. I can't find coral ones. I find privet. I find nandina. High sugar. Hey, I feel great. You know what happens on a sugar high? Mm-hmm. There are people who actually track how many dead birds wash up on the shore because they can't make flights. Well, sure, other things besides this can happen. Sure, they can. But how many more would have made it if they had the right food to build up their strength before they left? What else do non-native invasives do?
They strangle you, the ones that are there, their root systems.
Okay, so you remember way back there at the start, we started talking about interactions in the soil, all those decomposing communities, all the work they do. Do you think they do that for just anybody? No. Those soil organisms have co-evolved over millennia with those trees and plants within that ecosystem. Somebody new come in, overgrow outcompete, displace new plants? Do these soil organisms have a relationship with those? No. You know, on the invasive side, hey, it's kind of like a free lunch here because none of their own native co-evolved organisms are here with them. So it's not only the good guys, it's the bad guys. They didn't bring diseases. They didn't bring insects from wherever they're from. So they can get well established here because there are nutrients in the soil that they can access well enough. But as far as our necessary interacting soil microbes that help keep the rest of our forest and the rest of our vegetation healthy in ecosystems, the more the invasives come in, the more they change that soil makeup. The fewer soil microbes there will be because they have no relationships, and the soil microbes are going to die off with weight, whatever. They don't have that relationship with those trees and plants. So now, because there are fewer organisms breaking it down, making it available, all those nutrients we talked about a while ago, and that network of fungi that connect with other fungi, connect with other trees, connect with other plants, move those nutrients around, make them available, move that water around, make it available. All of that has started changing because now there are gaps there. Some of these guys are falling out. They're not here anymore. That means those trees over there that relied on that movement of nutrients and water, now they're going to be less healthy. So we see less healthy ecosystems, but especially in forest environments. We see a lot of forest health issues when non-natives move in, and especially those that become invasive because they make those gaps. Where do invasives get? Where do they get it? Sometimes we plant them. Sometimes we plant them intentionally. Sometimes we produce them accidentally. But yeah, we do plant them. But where do they get a foothold? Unmaintained areas. Disturbed areas. In any fully functioning ecosystem, all the niches are filled. As soon as you disturb it, you open the door for other things to happen. Sure, some new natives have a chance to grow when you disturb an ecosystem, but it's much more favorable to the non-natives, especially those that reproduce so quickly they become invasive. So let's think about that. I used to work at Jones Park, and you know they wondered why, because over in Harris County in the parks they put down concrete pathways, which requires a bit of scooping up, scraping off, digging out, construction stuff, put down the concrete, and wonder why all of a sudden now along this edge of the forest all these invasives are popping up. Well, what did we just do to disturb that ecosystem? And think about places, you know, the forest here does prescribe burns from time to time to help keep plant material down. But what does it take to get out there and do that? There are vehicles driving around, damaging the vegetation, compacting the soil. I was noticing this morning when I got here, I wanted to take a quick look around, see if there were any mushrooms we could go look at here in a little while. And I noticed this poor big old oak tree out here. He has suffered so over the years. There's, you know, the asphalt makes a circle around it. I don't know if he since the freeze, it has really suffered. It's completely covered, top to bottom, with epicormic shoots now. got failing limbs like crazy. It has just about reached the end of its life because it has no place else to grow its fruits. It can't grow under those paved areas. The roots can't grow there. There's no oxygen in there. So it's bound in that tiny little space with two pretty darn large pine trees to boot. And they are completely covered with pine cones because they're in distress. But I mean, we disturb natural areas to put in pathways, to put in places to drive, put in places to park, put in buildings with a gift shop. You know, we disturb natural areas so that people can enjoy natural areas. Well, as part of that process, we are opening that door for non-natives, and especially those that are invasive, to move in. So it's about interactions. I'm supposed to change slides again. Sorry. Let's see what else I got. Well, we talked a little bit about these fungal interactions. You know, here's a couple of interesting things. People ask me about eating mushrooms. I love mushrooms. I have a sign in my office that says I want mushrooms. The cells in mushrooms have chitin in them. What do we know about chitin?
All to digest.
It's hard. Tell me why we know about chitin. Come on, entomology woman. Tell me why we know about chitin.
It's the exoskeleton of
It's the
insects.
exoskeleton of insects. So it's hard. Well, fungal cells have chitin in them. Can we digest that? No. So mushrooms are so full of nutrition, but if you eat them wrong, it passes right through your gut. You get very little food down your throat. What do you have to do to make mushrooms as nutritious as they can be? You have to cook them. Heat breaks down that chitin. So cook them. Also, the membranes contain ergosterol. Is that in here? Yes. Which is a steroid alcohol that converts to vitamin D when it's exposed to sunlight. So if you really want a boost from those mushrooms you eat, even those button mushrooms you buy in the store, set them out in the sun for a few hours before you cook them and eat them. Cooking doesn't affect the vitamin D level, but the sunlight immensely boosts the amount of vitamin D in those mushrooms. So, you know, fungi are just great guys. They're really interesting. And like we've been talking about here, nothing in nature is about one thing. Nothing in nature is about one thing. I'm going to find a quote I wanted to read you. It's what John Muir actually said. He gets misquoted a lot, but this is what he actually said. When we try to pick out anything by itself, we find it hitched to everything else in the universe. That's what he actually said. And so as you study nature, I want you to try to remember to look for what you're studying and what it's connected to. What is it interacting with? What interacted with it to get it where you could see it, you could study it, you could find out more about it? Don't think of, you know, here's all these categories. Are you just a forest guy? Are you a wetland guy? Can you be one without the other? I don't think so. Can you study any one part of nature without thinking about all the other parts of nature? I don't think so. And, you know, E.O. Wilson, he said the 21st century is destined to be known as the century of the environment. People, we're 20 years ago. and it's not happening. But can you make a difference? Can you make a difference in somebody's life for them to think more about the environment, where we live, what we do, how we interact with it, how nature is interacting within itself? I mean, can you help spread that word as a master naturalist? You know, yes, you can. Yes, you can. It is why we are here. It is what we do. It is who we are. This isn't something that you learn and do, people. This isn't something to learn and do. This is something to be. It's kind of like that. I don't know if I can do most of it. Couple of terms that you might want to know. Oh, what I recommend about mushrooms? The Metzler's Texas Mushrooms, a field guide. It's great for local fungi. If you want to learn to ID and learn a little bit about this, Metzler's book, Field Guide to Texas. Out by Dave Lewis, and he and the Cassettes teamed up to write Mushrooms of the Gulf Coast. Oh, what a terrific book. Weighs about 42 pounds. The problem is, rather than being divided into families of mushrooms, as the Metzler's book is, all mushrooms are listed in alphabetical order in David's book, listed by scientific name. And guess what those darn lumpers and splitters do? They keep changing the scientific names. So what I typically do is if I'm looking up a mushroom, I look at the Metzler's book first and see what it used to be called, and then go to the index in the new book to see what the new name is, and then go to the page to see what they have to say. It's well, it's a terrific book, but it does have that constraint. Unless you know all the scientific names of mushrooms, David Aurora's book called Mushrooms Demystified is not a new book, but it's a book I love for many, many reasons. He's based in California, so a lot of his mushrooms are Western mushrooms that we really won't see here, but he covers a lot that we do see here. He kind of goes into the natural history of, for a lot of the species he lists. He tells you ways that they function. He tells you ways to cook them and eat them. And in the back, he has, I don't know, a dozen pages that are prefixes and suffixes for Latin words to help you figure out a little more easily what all those weird names we give stuff mean. So that, I love that part of the book myself. It's really helpful. And then this is a fairly new book. I think it was released in 2019 called Fantastic Fungi. It's a compilation of several mushroom nerd writers who have all written essays about fungi in different ways. There is a movie. You can find it on YouTube, but you still have to pay to watch it. However, you can buy the book for like $35. But it's really interesting because it's not just mushroom ID book. It's essays about the workings of fungi and how really they serve nature and serve us because of all those interactions. So it's kind of an interesting book. I'll put this up here that says, if you want to talk about mushrooms, I gave you my email address earlier. It's on the board. You can write down my phone number. You are more than welcome to text me or call me. I do like to talk about mushrooms. If you want to learn more about invasive plants, for work, I have a workshop coming up on August 14th. It'll be online. Carolyn, this is that sheet I brought. There's no way I can give you something you can just click on for a link. So I brought this, you might want to take a picture of it or send me an email and I'll send you these links. But August 14, we're going to do another invasives workshop. Also, if you want to spend more time on mushrooms themselves, back in February, I gave a talk for the township, part of their Walk in the Woods lecture series called Weird and Wonderful World of Mushrooms. There's a link to that on the Environmental Services YouTube channel. I also noted to you the July 31st water specialist training and the link to that invasive workshop. We did have an aquatic invasives workshop in June. And so it's on our YouTube channel too. If you want to take a picture of this or just send me an email and tell me what you want to know, and I'll be happy to send you all the links you want. So I think I'm through with you for the talking part. I will tell you that invasives in Texas are a problem. Texas, as of 2018, says they have 67 terrestrial plants on the invasive list, 12 aquatic and wetland plants, 10 mammals, 4 birds, 7 fishes, 11 insects, and 11 mollusks and crustaceans. The USDA, their noxious weed list, which includes plants that are prohibited to be bought, sold, transferred, released into waterways or whatever, lists 45 noxious weeds in Texas. So this isn't a small problem. It's a fairly large problem. This is a problem that it's not that easy to fix. If the collective we are going to do something about stopping invasive species, we've got to do a lot more education. We've got to do a lot more conversations. And I'm here to tell you that, peer-to-peer conversations really are the best way to go. So what you do as master naturalist will matter, both for spreading the word about the importance of ecosystem interactions and the value that fungi serve, but also about reducing invasive species in our ecosystem, making them healthier. So we're an hour in. How about we take a break, 15, 20 minutes, and then, yeah.
You get over here to public service. Now you see what she's about. Well, I've got your attention. When we get to the end, everybody's sort of ready to go, ready to head out. Next training session is August 7th. It's an entomology training class, dentistry class. Look at your syllabus. It's not going to be here. You're going to have an exposure to a little bit about what training sort of looks like normally. So you have to drive somewhere. You have to drive to San Houston State University Natural Science Museum. It's also called the Addicts Museum. I'm shaking your head.
Graduated.
You know where it is?
Yeah.
I've only been there once. So long story short, I will be absent. I'll be at another thing. And everybody in here is going to be there. Mike McGee, who was your instructor of the native plants, Weston, he's going to host the session. So before the session comes out August 7th, I will send all of you an email. I'll send you the address so you'll know how to get there. It's on the northeast side of Huntsville. So if you live in the woodlands, you might actually have to drive.
Oh my God.
It's a novel concept. I've been trying to get Jerry to come up to Huntsville for like 5 years. She gets out a little bit. But I just want to make sure you're aware of that. We will try, one of the things that came to mind when we're doing this is I don't know if it's going to be Zoom or YouTube. We'll have to work with Mike on that. It'd be easier for Mike to do Zoom. But, yeah, so your host instructor is going to be a guy named William Godwin. He's an instructor at San Houston State University. So he is, I think there's also an opportunity to go to the museum and look at their collection and all that kind of stuff. collections.
Yeah.
And I've actually never walked through the collections, but your second thing that's gonna happen, one of the Heartwood members, Al Barr, who's a very famous person that's been around the chapter for a long time, has the most intriguing, inspiring presentation on dragonflies and damselflies, and I've never liked them before, never seen them. One of my favorite topics, which I didn't know anything about while I was in it. I think you'll enjoy the session. If you have any questions, send me an email, but I'll make sure I send that information out before, so you all know, and you have a link. So it comes up for you.
Al Barr actually attended a training by John Abbott, the guy who literally wrote the books on Texas dragonflies and Texas damselflies a few years ago. And it was a class on migrating dragonflies. And so there is also a citizen science element there that you can help monitor the 3 species that migrate through our area.
A little of interest in you, and then we'll do the question. All the pictures that Al will show you, he takes.
Yes.
He's stunning. He's an ex-retired science teacher. He's really good at his craft. I think it's really cool fun in that session.
Yeah.
It's hard to beat mushrooms. He hasn't talked about the psychedelics. It really disappointing. That's the only reason they take.
I know. I opted not to show you picture after picture of mushrooms in hopes we actually go out and find some, rather than sitting in here.
Sorry,
Yeah.
next one.
Something like 400.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but
Yeah.
3 migrate through that are really stunning looking dragonflies.
And I don't know how Al does it, but the damn things never stop.
I know.
So he gets next to a pond and I'm thinking, I like some of them. Some of them, I'm just saying, man, look at that.
Yeah, but he has amazing. Does someone else have that?
Any other questions before we take the 15-minute break? Yes, ma'am.
I don't really have a question. Well, it's kind of a question. I have been studying bees because I've been volunteering to recruit bees. Went and bought bee soup, the whole bit. And in doing so, I went to the Texas Bee Supply in the Dayton area. The guy tells me there that some of the best honey made is from Chinese tallow trees. And I just kind of went, oh no, really? Is that true?
It is true. It's true in this area because Chinese tallow is such an invasive tree that it's actually replaced so much. There's a love-hate relationship. We had a chapter meeting that you or somebody, or somebody arranged for the kid who gave a great presentation. And he stayed in bed and almost passed out. Evil Chinese tallow.
So I mean, the fact of the matter is, if that's what there is, that's what bees use.
Right. So we need to give them something else and get rid of those.
Well, yeah, good substitute or whatever.
Anything native.
And sort of a follow-on to something Terry said. She's talking about your contract. So I've got 2.5 acres, a new place, and so this place has control zone, clearing all that hill contract forest fire does. And it regenerates, and that's why you see this all over grassland. It's my place, it's choked everything up, so I cut it all down. What happens when I cut it all out on it is the beauty berry, everywhere, beauty berry and all kinds of stuff. And so what I'm doing is mimicking what they do here at the forest, and actually a real pine forest looks like this. When it's not controlled, we have natural forest fires.
If you want to attract insects to your yard, plant oaks. I mean, they attract literally thousands of different species of insects, whether they're pollinators or other kinds of insects. But so you're not only helping butterflies, bees, you're helping birds because they need that extra protein for breeding season that they get from insects.
But not just any insect. They're looking specifically for caterpillars because like we talked about, that part
They're-
is hard.
They're
I mean,
soft.
picture them shoving
Yeah.
food down their baby's mouth. Soft.
Exactly.
Say, oh.
Plant oaks, yeah. Okay, are they slow growing? Some of them are, yes. But even within the first year of life, they are going to immediately start bringing in more insects.
So one last thing, and then I'll be quiet. Say something else. in your schedule, the very last class, we've got some classes on the phrase, and Terry's gonna do one other presentation.
Water conservation.
They have a little subtitle there called interim presentation. Interim presentation that is carried about Terry in all of our classes are not mandatory. No one needs to do it. But we've been historically had some people that wanted to stand and say, you know, over the course of this, I did this, and this, and this. If you'd like to present something to the group for just 10 minutes, 10, 12 minutes, and then last time we got 4 people that did it. The only criteria is it has to be about what our mission statement is. I know everybody here wants to talk about that. So we can't do that, but if it's anything about something like bees or something that you just really have an interest in, feel free to share with the group. I think that mine. I haven't even told you about my alligator door. I have a love-hate relationship with it. We mentioned that. We'll do that. Yeah. Yes, I have a skill of hurting.
Yeah.
You said non-natives sprout up in disturbed areas. Do those seeds come from birds, or how do they, if they're non-native? how do they
Washed
get
in runoff from rainfall,
there? Okay.
blown in by wind, carried in by
I'm in
animals.
South Walker County, and Chinese settlers coming
We
up.
introduced into, as a problem, so it doesn't take eons to evolve, so this ecosystem just evolves to change cattle over time, or change perpetuate.
So here's the problem. So Stephen is asking, okay, if we wait a few more eons, won't those non-native invasives co-evolve with things? The problem is this: we've already got a suite of organisms in our ecosystems. New things come in, and the invasive ones don't just randomly put in a few here and there. They populate an area. They eradicate everything that's native involved there. So do existing organisms have eons to co-evolve and develop adaptations?
This is that we're trying to perpetuate this already built off a lot of other systems to balance.
All right, so we have an impaired ecosystem. If we get the invasives out and replace it with the kinds of natives that were already there, that system can rebound.
I think the problem that you're stating is lack of balance.
Yes.
And so with lack of balance means Chinese cattle, but much use of has a place all of Georgia which part of the land. So you can't drive down like that without saying 100% Chinese cattle.
You drive down Highway 288 toward the coast.
If you go to the national forest, there's this balance. The only thing that's interrupted the balance in the national forest is the lack of forest. And so therefore the yellow pine chokes out a lot of stuff. And so a lot of their habitat and nesting gets eradicated, and they just sort of move around. So I think if you go, for instance, there's a aquatic plant that's invasive of the oxygenated. The only thing that kills that plant is a local mold. In Argentina, lots of those kind of bugs, and it kills them and keeps them under control. Once it gets up here, it goes away.
I think what Stephen actually getting at, on today's natives, the invasives from eons ago, and is that going to replicate in future?
It's a problem.
So, I mean, what is a native? And
It's a problem that's lower, slower scale.
Right.
So
Yeah, it is.
Rate of
Yeah.
introduction.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's the concept.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we did, I mean, the plants and the animals and the dogs.
I was going to miss the bridge between building a whole ecosystem and chasing.
So fungi are so vital to ecosystem health, all ecosystem health, that when the non-natives especially the invasives, begin to move in and proliferate, those fungi don't all have the same relationships with these new plants as they did with the natives. And as the fungi begin to fall out, those networks that move the nutrients and move the water around begin to get broken down. It affects the health of the entire ecosystem because they aren't functioning as well as they were before the introduction of the non-natives. So, I mean, honestly and truly, we have to have fungi in our soils for life on Earth to exist, period. So when we start damaging those fungal networks, we're damaging the entire ecosystem's function out.
So they are susceptible.
Yes, they, you know, so there are fungi all over the world. Some are common all over the world, but a lot of fungi are specialists, just like birds are specialists to trees or foods. Fungi are specialists as well. And fungi don't, you know, just grow up to a tree's roots and say, knock, knock, let me in. The tree has to open the door. It is a true symbiotic relationship in every sense of the word. So there is an exchange. There is a mutualism there that both sides have to be willing to do this. So the new plants, new trees come in. Maybe these fungi that are here or these trees can't function with those trees. The entire ecosystem suffers from it.
You have the same problem with monoculture.
Yes.
You have a monoculture, like in forestry, you plant all the same pine tree in an area, they don't grow as healthy and as well because of the lack of diversity of fungi.
Sorry, one more question. Are there invasive fungi?
Yes.
You never hear about them. I mean, you always don't see them probably, but I mean, they are destructive in this area.
They become parasitic. Interesting enough, there are some fungi that are sometimes parasitic and sometimes not, depending on what they have access to, what relationships they can build. If they get what they need, they don't necessarily parasite. Can't say the word. Other things. You know, I'm telling you, this memory thing is.
But there is no fungi on the EPA list or the Texas invasive list.
No, but conversely, there are also endangered fungi because of ecosystem disturbances. And you don't see them on the endangered species list. So there's a big movement on to try to get fungi moved up onto organisms of concern. You know, flora, fauna, we're good about knowing what flora, fauna are endangered. We don't so much pay attention to what fungi. Yeah, I mean, most of them are microscopic. If you could see all the spores that were in the air all the time, every day, 24/7, year round, and they were all in one place, they would be a mass about the size of Africa. And only a very small percentage of fungi form spore releasing bodies. So even though every breath you take right here in this room, when we walk out there, we'll be breathing mushroom spores. Tiny amount of fungi actually are those spore producing. The rest of them are all those microscopic, never seen them, but can't live without them.
Yeah, there's some invasives too because we have marketed them as being beneficial. For instance, worms, earthworms and stuff are actually invasive. The honeybee was introduced. So it's hard like to put, you know, you're not going to win over a whole lot of people by putting earthworm on the invasive list.
Well, so because they are such good soil engineers, I mean, they have adapted. Now there are still some of the northern introduced earthworms that are just freaking havoc, but
There's some science though that says that they're too good at what they do. So then it plays with your insects and everything.
okay, where are we now, timeline?
So after we take our walk and we have a little break, we're going to do things about it. So don't cut off right after the walk. We'll do that. there's water here. We're gonna take a break. Let's start back at 10.
Yeah, right outside the door.
So they finished the last road, so I can walk all the way to. Getting like like major road, there's no way to. Oh, okay. I mean, you can get into the course, but you know, you gotta cross. Well, that's possible. Yeah. That's dangerous. Like walk light. But still, you're.
Yeah. I know how to use the suicide way to use the car, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Walking, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh,
But yeah.
Yeah.
Are the glitches coming out?
He said they fixed it.
Okay. When did they tell you that? 'Cause I checked this Thursday and mine said.
I got the email yesterday.
Oh, okay. So I've got a whole bunch from the south.
And this is. So then I guess. Earlier, that's what I. So I guess the 26. I got 30 something. That's right.
Yeah, it's growing up, like I said. Like, we were
Yeah.
She's had something.
Oh, she's that lady.
I don't think you said, if you did not bring something to write with, you might want to take it.
Yeah, I looked at one point. It said that.
I will put it out here too.
Okay.
So Melissa, she's not offering to step down.
Okay.
Okay.
So I noticed that I won't be able to attend graduation because signing my granddaughter up for the junior master match. And as far as like the volunteer hours, I only have 47 hours. But so my graduation, I'll take on that.
You'll still have. So you have this, but you look at this. Oh, gosh. Okay, so as soon as you finish and certify.
I'll show my son until December.
Wait, you're after. Oh.
You should be able to get the volunteer.
Yeah, yeah. As long as you're. What you can do is reach out to JR.
I carry us off.
I am well.
I know.
Let me get some.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, she always said it was. Oh.
Sorry.
Yeah, so anyway. Yeah, I know.
How you doing?
Oh, yeah.
Does anyone need a pencil? I have one last one. That's a, yeah.
So I had so many.
Great job, Thomas.
Yeah, and I have. Yeah.
I didn't know if I could tell you, Jennifer, if you already said it. I heard the thing, why does everybody know?
Because they're play guys. Yeah.
Okay.
But it has.
I was hoping so.
What's Mushroom's favorite rock band?
Dang, not AC/DC, I'm pretty sure.
Death Cap for Cutie. Or another few here.
You don't want to recognize the name.
But I have tons of, yeah. And I have vocabularies and stuff too, but I have all plants.
See how our recording's going. Because this is going to be interesting trying to live. Oh yeah, it's still going.
What are you gonna do, like the office up?
Yeah, well, I was going to ask Karen, but I was going to at least lock the office. Something they wanted to lock in that room. I have to keep. So I know I can lock it and get back in. So that you have to pay to it also.
Private.
There's one there.
Let me look in the office and see.
Bobby, there's some in here.
That's the thing. Can I make this part of my life? Yeah. Google on one. Be careful, my husband might take it right
Does anybody need pencils? I found a few more.
Oh. Oh, yeah, yeah. 15 months from that. It's like 15 months.
Not even 10. What here?
She just took off.
All right, let me get you a battery pack, okay?
Okay, great. Let me get her to do that first. Could you stop this?
No, I gotta leave it on.
Hey, Terry.
Send me a message and email me. Borrow it, then that's fine. I know that you borrowed it.
You want me to lock the door too, because your stuff's in there?
Yeah.
But I gotta, let me
Okay,
get,
ladies.
I'm gonna get one battery pack.
It's gonna work out here.
Yeah, it's supposed to work out here. Terry took out. Let's go.
Oh, I thought we had two more.
Well, let's get it done.
Are you guys gonna
Can I
carry
need anything else?
Yeah.
You've got that? Oh, you so good.
It's still running.
Oh, you. Terry took off.
It's hot. She wants to get this done.
She does. She hasn't had a chance to take people out in the woods and so long.
So does this have rain?
Yes, I think, yeah, because
Okay.
it's on,
Okay.
Wi-Fi, not Wi-Fi, it's on cellular.
Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
We're doing okay.
I know you actually get to see my face. So people, I want you while we're walking to watch for two things. Anything that looks like a fungus and anything that you think is an invasive species. Let's see what we've got here, okay?
Giving you a warning to the battery. I have the battery pack.
Yopon. Yopon holly. Tell me its scientific name. Felix. Alex vomitoria. So native lore has it that if why am I echoing? Native lore has it that before ceremonies, they would pull leaves, berries, put them in a big pot of water, boil them for days, make this super strong tea, and before the ceremonies, they would chug a lug it till they threw up. That's why we have this thing we have. Ilex vomitoria. But this is our only native tree that has naturally occurring caffeine in the leaves. So there are still people today who pull the leaves, spread them out on the cookie sheet, dry them in the oven on a really low temperature for hours till they're crispy critter, dry and brown, and then crush them up and steep them as a tea with a little honey in it. I don't know, in my mind, if the berries can make you throw up, do I really want to drink the tea? Why would they drink it till they threw up? Cleanse their bodies before important ceremonies. Rain, but the last week that's fairly dry. So we may have to look a little bit to find kind of that shape area. Overachiever speed.
And then it goes. But she's too early.
Yeah, you gotta stick close to that.
Okay, what a mushroom? Specifically. What? It's the fruiting body. This. Oh, look, 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 look.
Yeah, we were
Okay.
very distracted.
Yeah.
No, I think it was a skipper.
Forgot what I was saying.
Fruiting body.
So this mushroom is just like an apple on a tree. This is not the plant. This is just the fruiting body. So this little guy has a long skinny stem. It has a ring around the stem. It has beautiful, all evenly length gills interspersed with a few shorter gills. The stem itself has a little bit of leftovers from the veil that covered the mushroom before it started growing up. The cap has some remnants of the veils that are still here. You see these striations along the edge of the cap. I mean, all of these are the things you want to note and notice when you're beginning to try to identify a mushroom, those things and more. Regardless of what we think it might be, when we would look it up, we'd also want to do a spore print. So you take the cap off, put it down on a piece of paper, put a cup or a bowl or something over it, leave it for a few hours or overnight. One of the ways we identify mushrooms is by the color of the spores, but the spores are microscopic. So how are we going to do that? But if you'll do that, cover it over and put it on paper overnight thing, the spores drop, and then en masse, you can see what color those spores are. So you end up with these gorgeous images that I've photographed a lot. I used to use colored shiny papers, all kinds of stuff to make spore prints because I think they're like art in themselves. And so you have these gill patterns in some color. Lots and lots of mushrooms spore print white, but there are a whole range of other colors that you might find. So this is a good find. I don't know which one this is. I'd have to look it up, and I will later, but what else? Why are you standing over there? Early. Are you finding mushrooms?
Mhm.
Okay, y'all go on ahead. I'll catch up with you later. They are chanterelles. So this is the only, well, this is one of two only mushrooms that I will ever suggest or allow you to taste raw and in the wild. But if you're brave enough, you can take a tiny piece of chanterelle, do it right there in the front of your mouth, spit it out. To me, it's very peppery. I think it's a fantastic taste. When you want to eat mushrooms in the wild, from the wild, don't take chances, people. Don't take chances. If you are not absolutely certain or with someone who's absolutely certain, please don't eat them. And if you decide to eat mushrooms from the wild, cook them, but save one raw for the emergency room. Okay, so the short answer to the question about whether there's a lookalike for this.
Why do you eat it, Terry? Why do you just taste it?
Huh?
You say you don't eat it, you spit it out?
Yeah, spit it out.
Why?
Well, I wasn't gonna say this out loud, it's full of bugs. So, okay. So here's the thing about chanterelles. Pay attention, this is important.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
These are not gills. These are ridges. And they extend onto the stem and down the stem a ways. Take a look and see how they are not gills. They are ridges. Pretty, isn't it? The smell is distinctive. The taste is distinctive. Those ridges are distinctive. So they are one way you can be sure that it's chanterelles and not something like jack-o'-lanterns that are toxic.
How would you get spores out of that one same way?
You're not going to get much of a spore print from a chanterelle, but if you will pay attention and learn to ID it, it's a no-brainer. It's very distinctive. Yeah, it's very distinctive. It's very distinctive. Yeah. Now, the case, the ridges, it's all very. Jack-o'-lanterns actually have gills and are toxic. So if these were all fresh, new, if we were here a day or two ago, this is probably enough that one person could saute them up and mix them in with some wild rice or something and, make a meal of it. But they cook down. It's like so many other things they cook down. But enjoy. Okay. Yeah, so these are commonly called conch mushrooms. You can see why. They are woody inside. These are not fresh enough. If you come close and look up here, I think it's involved in that. If you get close enough and look up here, can you see that where I'm touching the pores instead of gills on the bottom here, it's staining, it's turning brown where I've touched it. So that's a help in identifying characteristic. These guys are some of the hardest working decomposers in the forest. All the bracket mushrooms are really hard working decomposers, but they're not edible because from start to finish, they're this woody hard stuff. There are a few, not including this one, that are also sometimes ground into a powder, used for like a tea, steep pork tea. This tree. Some breaks and some wood to it, which is probably why these mushrooms are here. I'm wondering if this darn thing got lightning struck, is why this is growing this wound wood that it is. Because typically when you see any kind of fungus growing on a tree, it's because that part of the tree is dead or dying. And that's what mushrooms do. That's what fungi do, is they decompose dead and dying material. So this tree has got some problems.
Yeah.
No, this over here. I'll catch up with you here too. These are like they are. They are Pleurotus austratus, oyster mushrooms. You can eat those too. I don't advise tasting them. They're a little bitter when you taste them all like this. But you can cook these and eat them. I wouldn't pick them quite this young. Let them get a little bit bigger. But here's what's interesting on this tree is you can see some evidence of the fungal growth here. That is, it's hard to imagine what it looks like in the soil. But here on the tree, you get an idea of what it looks like. And again, if you see, this is a wound in the tree. So it has surrounded itself with some wound wood to isolate that wound. And that's where the dead part of the tree trunk is that's growing the oyster mushrooms. Whoops.
one over here. I didn't. Carolyn found this one and wanted you to see it.
Boletus. Instead of gills, it has pores.
And what's the name of it?
It's in the Boletus family. I love the patterning of the pores, how beautiful they are. So there really is only one bolete that grows locally that is not edible. The rest are considered good edibles. Some are tastier than others. Personally, I can't eat boletes. I like them. I like the taste of them, but when I eat them, I get a upset tummy. So it's just like some people have sensitivities to strawberries or some other thing. There's no way of knowing whether you're going to have some reaction, some sensitivity to mushrooms until you try them. So the advice is always, if you want to eat wild mushrooms, eat a very small amount the first time and wait at least a day to see if you have any kind of reaction. And then, as I said earlier, always save a raw one for the emergency room. Always. Cool find.
Where?
Yeah. Okay. They are.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. Yes. Oyster mushroom, yeah.
Carolyn's out on a scout trip. Trying to find the unique stuff. Right here, Terry.
Yes, I'm
Where
getting there.
everybody's taking the pictures.
So what does it look like? What does it look like? It looks like coral. Guess what it's called? Coral fungi. Another really terrific decomposer. Some in the coral family are good edibles. And though, yes, those little orange things popped up nearby are more chanterelles. This guy says we're gone. It's gonna be hard to figure out in here. It does have gills. It smells pretty nice. I think this may have been an oyster that's just way aged. Pretty sure that's what this guy is. It still smells like that. We're here. Oh, another chanterelle. See, it's got ridges. Oh, yeah. Cool. Chanterelle?
Oh, what is this?
Yeah, I know. How could I ever mix that?
Thinner ones that are in that larger bracket fungi polypore family. These thinner ones are called parchment fungi.
because they're so much thinner. Again, they have pores instead of gills. So they're really pretty interesting to take a look at. Again, we see a tree with a wound. This tree is done, gone. It's over with. And the mushroom is here doing its best to start decomposing. What's in wood that makes it so hard? What does the cellulose wrap around?
Fiber?
Starts with an L. Lignin. And what's just about the only thing that can break down lignin? Mushroom. So without fungi, dead stuff would be all over the ground because there'd be no way for that lignin to get started in the decomposition process. I want to leave this tree for a minute.
Don't leave the tree. I'll just bring you stuff. You're about to get a daddy on.
Well, they don't
This
bite.
one is fairly dried. I'm not sure what it is. I'd have to look it up, but it has kind of a unique patterning to the gills. Yeah, this one is one of the tooth fungi. So when you look at this guy, you see the pores sort of poke out a little bit. It's got a really gorgeous patterning to those pores, but they sort of poke out just a little bit. There are some whose teeth are so long. If you Google Hericium, it's commonly called lion's mane mushroom. It looks like a shaggy mop hanging down out of the tree. It's the teeth are so long. So tell me about these rows of holes. Yellow-bellied sapsucker. What does yellow-bellied sapsucker eat? He does eat some sap. He does. But that's not his main food. So he knows that if he comes to this tree and he pokes these holes here, the first thing the tree is going to do is freak out and say, oh my God, there's a hole in the bark. Quick, fill it, fill it, fill it. And the sap starts running out of the tree to fill those holes so insects and diseases can't get inside, get under the bark and make the tree sick. And he eats a little of that. He ingests a little of that. But that stuff attracts what else? Insects, flying, crawling. And is it really, really sticky stuff? Oh, yeah. So here come the critters crawling up the tree, the critters flying into the tree. They want some of that sweet sap, high sugar, great energy food. They get stuck in there. And tomorrow, yellow-bellied sapsucker comes back and he eats up all the bugs that are stuck there. And he makes another row of holes. He's a really smart bird.
Is that what killed this tree?
No, they don't kill the trees. As a rule, they don't kill the trees. No, this tree has other problems. As you can see here, there's been some erosion. The roots are exposed. It's not getting the oxygen it needs. Chances are good there was something pollutant in this water flow here. I mean, the trees have gone there for a while. This isn't new.
Sapsuckers are attracted to trees in distress, correct? I mean, if the tree is in distress, it will typically grow for that.
So the reason why things like woodpeckers and sapsuckers and all the woodpecker family would be attracted to a tree is as the tree goes into decline, those decomposing organisms begin to invade it. And so You think about why, the woodpeckers peel the bark off dead trees. There's insects in there. There's all kinds of invertebrates in there. That's what they want. Those birds want those invertebrates for food. So they're going to get in beneath the bark to the best extent they can. Well, the sapsucker is a migrant. He's only here in the fall. We only see him coming through in the fall. So he's got a shorter window. He can't always wait around for stuff to get to a point where he can peel off the bark and eat what's beneath. So he has a little bit different strategy. He creates his own food source, sets up his own smorgasbord, ready to go.
There's some yellow, orange stuff going on the limbs up there.
Where are you seeing it, Jamie?
Terry, there's some on the lower branch right above your head right there.
Let me move back here so I can see it.
There's some that you can reach, Terry.
No.
On
Oh yeah, that is another polypore. That's another bracket fungus. So yeah, the tree is gonna be eaten from the inside out ASAP. Up on the limb that's hanging, that's gonna fall on your head, is some dry rot. See that patch up there, that light colored patch up there? There's a canker on this long limb out here. Yeah, so I'm guessing because of the poor health of so many trees right along this little water channel, that either something that was a contaminant or a pollutant might have flowed through there and done some damage, or it simply became a venue for standing water too long for these trees. Some of these don't like to have their feet wet being standing water too long. Okay, are you over there because you have more mushrooms? Okay. Okay, what are you pointing at? Never going to be labeled as invasive. Native plants are never labeled invasive. Okay, can't hear you. Say it again. Nope, that is smilax. That is a native vine. Good vine though. Smilax is such an incredibly smart vine. When you see it growing up a tree, it's covered with spines, thorns, so the deer won't eat it. But once it's up about 8-10 feet in the tree, it stops growing thorns because it knows the deer can't reach it up there. So how smart is that? It can concentrate all of its energy growing leaves instead. Yes. They may develop into puffballs. It's possible. They're too tiny to tell right now. There's some more polypores there on that branch. We have just been just long enough without rain this last week that now we're starting to be too dry for mushrooms. It doesn't take long. The parchment fungi. Yeah, there's a whole family of them.
Yeah, it was.
Terry, I'm guarding this one with my life.
Okay.
She just thought it was cool coming up through the sand.
I'm relinquishing my duties.
So I can tell you right now, it's a Russella family mushroom. Quite a few of them are edible. But the problem with Russellas is their colors are so variable that you could think you're picking an edible one, and end up with a really bad tummy ache, diarrhea for a few days. You know, it won't kill you. Even if you do eat a bad one, you just wish you were dead.
Straight over there next to that tree. Oh, yeah.
Upright.
It's really big.
Oh, cool.
That's a good one.
We may have found death cap for cutie.
Is anybody Denise Hall? Her name tag?
There it is.
Hey, you know, I had not left the building. Sorry. There it is. It migrated to the middle. Never mind. Turn off the camera. All right, I don't want to pull this up and. This is Ammonite. We know it's Ammonite for a couple of reasons. Number one, if you look at the base of the stem, you see there is a cup that the stem is growing out of. That is called a vulva. That is the base. When Ammonite first begins to push up out of the soil, thank you. When it first begins to push up out of the soil, it looks rather like an egg. There. As it grows, as the stem begins to grow and the cap begins to develop, it pushes up and it opens that covering, that universal veil. Man, this is a foul smelling mushroom. Yikes. Let's not do that one. So you end up with the remnants of that cup at the base of the stem, and you end up with this ring around the stem from where the top of that veil was. On the cap, if this were fresher, you would be able to see it more. But on the cap, there are little bits and pieces where it broke through that veil. So that's another giveaway characteristic to help you ID it. It could be a death cap. It's a little past its prime, so it's a little difficult to tell at this stage unless we pick it and do more things to it to try to ID it. But when you find Ammonite, there are a couple of few that are considered edibles. It's kind of like the Yopon holly. You know, if death cap can kill you, and it can and does, period. If you eat it, your choices are die or get a liver transplant. That's your choices. Trying out other ammonites is not on my list of things. I'm gonna pass on that. So, yeah. Yes. That was. It's lying on the. It's lying on. It's lying on the ground, but it's another one of these. Yeah, we're not gonna. Well, we have seen quite a few things right along the edge of the path, but we're really going to see more if we get out here where the shade has kept the soil a little more moist. Pretty little day flowers. Love those things.
I have a question on the viewing audience. Like different mushrooms have different levels.
So, you know, the question is, why would mushrooms have toxins and some be poisonous? I'll be there in a sec. And my question is, if fungi have been on Earth for 400 million years plus, and man is much, much newer on the scene, why would mushrooms have anything to harm us at all? We weren't there. It didn't develop these defenses against us. So why would that be? In point of fact, we have receptors in our brains and in our bodies that some of the molecules in fungi perfectly fit into. It's almost as though there would be a reason for us to use those fungi. And what would that reason be? What would that reason be? There are some plants too that have molecules that perfectly fit into some receptors in our body. But fungi, oh my God. Well, they developed before we grow the seed. Why do they have things that we haven't? There you go. So are we meant to use them? Yay. Yes, it is. It's another Ammonite. Okay. So chanterelles aren't just that red color. There are many species of chanterelles. Yellow ones are also chanterelles. Now, ammonites are some of the hardest working decomposers, and they're great networkers. Yep. Another ammonite. Smells like there.
No, they're just another kind of flower. They're those flowers, but I don't know. My favorite one.
Who's our native plant person?
They're pretty beneficial.
Is this daughter?
Yeah. They're growing on
Who's
my
our native
compost
plant
pile.
person? Is this daughter? This looks to me like our native daughter. Dodder. This tri-leaf with the vine. It has purple flowers. I thought our native daughter had white, but maybe it might be purple.
I don't think I got some cells from that. No, probably not. When I put something like that in,
Right.
you have to investigate it.
This is definitely a pea plant. Some pea family thing.
That is that's a native. It's the only native plant
Yeah.
that we have.
Butterfly pea.
Yeah, it's Larry.
Yeah. I can't hear you, Carolyn. Tell me. Oh, nice.
And then there's a little button one, and then there's this stone on this.
Yeah, so more, these are more polypore family. They'll get larger, make those shelf-looking mushrooms. This is not Ammonite. This is something else. Probably Russella family. Yes, it has gills, but they're very protected at this stage.
So if it gets bigger, that'll
Yeah.
come up like it did on the other one.
It may. Some of them keep that in curl along the edge as they get older.
Don't remember.
Yeah, some kind of are.
Those kind of-
So do you see a cup at the bottom? Yes. Do you see a ring, a veil on the stem? Yes. So it's Ammonite. So should you even be touching poisonous mushrooms? Well, okay, the safe answer would be no. But in point of fact, you have to ingest some of the spores or some of the tissue. So if you're gonna handle it, don't eat. If you smoke, don't smoke. Don't do anything that makes contact between your hand and mouth before you thoroughly wash your hands if you handle mushrooms. I try to tell kids, if you see it, look at it, but don't touch it because kids have their hands in their mouth all the time. So,
All right.
yes.
You look at this one here.
Yeah.
That was.
See the cup at the bottom? See the ring? There's a remnant of a ring there. Yeah. This is the one, I think this one is. He did the same.
Yeah.
Okay, we're out here picking all these mushrooms. Are we damaging the mushroom network here? Does it kill the tree to pick an apple? No. But this is how an apple is the suitcase for seeds on an apple tree. These are the suitcase for spores in mushrooms. So if we pick them before they're mature and have released their spores, we could have some effect on how easily they spread. Anything worth looking at now? Well, let's go see Curly. We haven't seen Curly yet.
Carol's hollering at you.
Now it's way mature, but here's another Ammonite. Tell me what's happening on this tree here.
Well, it's sapping. Injured. Repairing itself.
But why is it dripping all that sap like that?
To form a crust.
Birds
I guess
poking holes in
save
it.
itself. The ones at my house were guarded by beavers, and it did that, and it's still living after 5 years.
So I'm going to put it to you that if we looked really closely, we would see there are some holes here, and that it may be beetle infestation, some of things like pine bark beetles or something in that ilk. How can a pine bark beetle, which is not microscopic, but darn close to it, how can it kill a tree? So
Don't they go into the cambium?
yes, but one can't kill a tree. It's
No,
not
no,
going to
no, it's
happen.
gotta be-
So the tree has to be broadcasting this scent, that terpene scent out there that says I'm in distress, and it attracts the bark beetles. They come, they drill into the bark in that one cell thick layer of tissue that's underneath the bark that circles the tree, that the tree uses to move nutrients, those sugars and starches down, and moisture up into the leaves. They chew through, they make those tunnels that are called galleries. If you pull off the bark of a dead tree and you see those little, I think they look like alien writing, but you see those little tunnels going everywhere. The bark beetle is going to lay her eggs at the end of each of those little arms off her tunnel, off her channel that she chewed through there, they have mycangia. The beetles have mycangia, which are pockets, little parts of their body where they store mushroom spores. And when she lays her egg, she's going to put down some saliva with those mushroom spores in it near the egg. The mushroom is going to grow so that when that egg produces a larva, the larva eats the mushroom. The larva can't eat this tree. It's not able to do that. It eats the fungus that she left behind for it to grow. And when it's grown big enough, gone through enough instars, it bores back out through the bark and flies away, and the whole process repeats. But do you think that's the end of the story?
So does the fungus cause the demise of the tree then?
Ultimately, yes, but that's not the end of my pine bark beetle story. Pine bark beetles have little parasites that live on them, even tinier little mites. They ride along on the pine bark beetle, let the pine bark do the heavy lifting, let her chew those darn tunnels and galleries. It also lays its egg. It also has mycangia. The kind of fungal spores the mites carry is different from the fungus that the bark beetle is putting down. And whichever fungus grows better, that's the larva that's going to survive, grow enough to pupate, and emerge as an adult again. So you think that's the end of that story? Turns out that saliva from those bark beetles has antibiotics we've never seen before. Wouldn't it be a kick in the head if after decades of foresters trying to rid the forests of pine bark beetles, they turn out to be our next great medicine? Wouldn't that be a kick in the head? Mm-hmm. So there's, research going on to try to determine whether there's something that could be synthesized and utilized as medicine. Nature is never about one thing. It's always about interactions, right?
We know how the antibiotic benefits the larva.
Mushrooms, the fungal body itself, as part of its enzymes that it uses to break down things, those enzymes are antifungal, antibiotic, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant. Most of the fungi even have some regenerative properties. That's why, for 7-8 years, I take reishi mushroom extract as a capsule every day of my life. I think it makes me healthier. I don't know. When I started taking it because, I'm an old person. I had some arthritis in my hands, and my hands would hurt in the morning. I started taking the reishi mushroom extract, and I don't know, it was a little less than a couple of months. And one morning I got up and I was getting ready for work, and I noticed my hands weren't hurting anymore. So I've been taking it. It's a very powerful immune system builder. So
how are you spelling it?
Reishi? Yes, it's Ganoderma is the genus, Ganoderma. In Japan, they call it reishi. In China, they call it lingxi. For centuries, it has been highly prized for its medicinal value. If you listen to Chinese traditional medicine, a reishi mushroom can cure everything from soup to nuts. There are other mushrooms like trametes, some of the bracket fungi. We have not seen trametes today, but they are those shelf fungi that are now widely used in cancer treatments, especially reducing tumors and breast cancer. Mushrooms have such amazing properties for health that, I don't know, Western medicine is finally beginning to get on that bandwagon. So anyway, the particular one I take is a combination of like 8 or 9 different fungi, but primary in it is the reishi, so R-E-I-S-H-I. But if you go to the vitamin shop over by Sam's and you tell them you want mushroom extract, they have quite a few choices. Which way are we going? What time is it? How much longer do y'all want to go?
As long as you want to talk.
Okay, I want us to talk a bit about journaling. So why don't we find a more comfortable spot? Because I'd like for us to spend a few minutes at a time in one space. So let's find a comfortable place we can all hang out for a few.
Yeah.
Stuck
Everywhere.
I know.
Is anybody watching online? Is everybody online? Or is everybody here today?
One,
Is anybody online? Or is everybody here?
one person. So, but we're recording it, so whoever might have missed it can.
So now I'm gonna just come back. Crazy. Yes, I will.
You wanted the name tags or your, no?
Carolyn does.
Isn't that on like?
I think she was doing that soon. I think I sent an exchange come across about that. So that should be at before, after the second to last class, I believe.
But I could come out in the evening. Right. And.
It sounds like most people have completed the test, eh, of all the starters. It's a good finish number.
We have a good number that turned in their hours. So
One evening.
they just need volunteer hours.
Yeah.
So they need to start volunteering and they need AT, which we have
So
plenty
easy
of
these
free.
days, I mean,
Yes, it's all
I love
online.
watching these things.
I know they're pretty good. Most of them.
A lot, some of you sort of
That
roll your
last
eyes.
water class was hard to get through, but
I don't know if we're supposed to sit.
I suggest you do that. If you're not, I suggest find a tree that you feel safe leaning against. I'd like for you to think about observing nature as a beginning to the kind of notes you might make. I'll differentiate briefly between field notes and journal entries. If I want to figure out what grass this is, I'm possibly going to take a photo, but I'm for sure going to note as many things as I can. And if I have a glass, I'm going to see if it has those little hairy connections where the blade meets the, whatever the name of that stem thing is in a grass. I'm going to make as many notes as I can because later I want to be able to refer back to those to identify whatever that is. Those are field notes. But if I want to talk about, for myself, if I want to talk about being out here today, what I saw, how it made me feel, how I feel it made me or helped me grow as a naturalist. You know, what new thoughts did I have? Or what new things did I see? That would come more under the header of journaling. So field notes are great for reference. And if you keep good field notes, you want to make sure you always note the date, the time, the weather, not just today, but what's the weather been the past few days. You want to comment on an overall kind of a list of things that were nearby. So, you know, I keep saying this, but nothing is by itself in nature. So if I want to study this grass, I need to know some of the other things that are growing there as a clue, possibly, to soil type, other things that might be growing with it. Those are field notes. And if you keep good field notes over time, you should see my mushroom notebook. It's like, oh, well, I'm on my fourth mushroom field notebook. But what I can do is when I see something in October, I go back for a few years in the previous September, October, Novembers and see if I saw the same thing. And if not, then I might go further back in the year or further forward in the year to see, well, I'm seeing it in October this year, but 2 years ago, I saw it in early August. Now, what about that? It helps you it helps you get a sense of when to expect nature to look a certain way. The same thing can be true of keeping a nature journal if you do those same first steps. Date, time, what is the weather? What was the weather a few days ago? What else did you see around when you were on your nature walk, even if it was out your back patio to watch a bird and a feeder? What else was going on? Nature isn't about one thing. It's about interactions and connections. So take a look at the larger picture and then ask yourself, what do I think I learned today? What did I see that was the same? What did I see that was different? Did it make me feel as though I've progressed as a naturalist, that when I saw it, I recognized it? Or maybe that I still... Journaling is about keeping yourself informed over time of how you progress as a naturalist. So here's what I'd like you to do. Find a spot. We're going to sit down if you wish, stand up if you want to lean against the tree, but we are going to stand for 5 minutes with our eyes closed, and we are only going to listen. You will not open your eyes. You will not speak. You will not write down. And at the end of 5 minutes, I'm going to ask you to open your eyes and write down every sound you heard. So find a spot that you can be comfortable. You're just going to stand there at ease. Is that it, Stephen? Okay, how do I do this? Okay, start now. Close your eyes. quite been 5 minutes, but we'll quickly write down everything you heard. You two collaborating on what you heard. Yeah. You can make it come over there. Adam, you quit writing awfully early. Tell me the main thing you heard. Traffic. How many heard traffic? What else did you hear? Potatoes. How many heard more than 3 different areas of potatoes? Yeah. Yeah. Or grasshoppers. What else did you hear? Who heard more than 4 birds? 4 different kinds of bird songs. Who heard more than 4? Who heard 3? What else did you hear? What? You heard the heartbeat. Okay. So really, in the traffic jam, a lot of things we might have. I mean, if we had a little breeze today, and you were observing it, you might have heard the rush of the breeze. Do we have a breeze today? No. It's flying. Like that. Okay. Now you can stay where you are, or you can move to another spot. I don't care. Stay in proximity. So we're going to spend about 3 minutes, and we are only going to look up. Only look up. So you might want to lean against the tree or sit beneath the tree. Look up. Don't write yet. Just look up. Observe as much as you can up. And then when I jump in, write it down quickly. Okay, write down what you saw. Everything you saw. Okay, somebody tell me what you saw mainly. What did you put the first thing you wrote down? Somebody tell me. What? Pine cones? So compare or contrast the trees near the pathway here to the ones that are as pine cones.
This one seems to be more dispersed than the others around it. This one's got a lot more thorns in the.
Why would that be? Yes, yes, we did it. This roadway is a disturbance, but what else is there about these pines versus these pines?
Earlier control.
Higher elevation than here. Do pine trees really like wet feet? And we've had lots and lots of rain. Is it gonna start here and run off this way? So look at these trees. I mean, they look significantly healthier to me than these, although there are a couple of them in there with a lot of pine cones, but overall, these look healthier. These are in the worst distress right along the roadway because they're next to this compacted soil from the roadway. The ball moss has taken over in a few places. But if you look out here, you see a lot of pine cones out here as well. So yes, it's that stress indicator that these trees are not as happy as they would like to be. Somebody didn't keep their promise to them. These are not old trees though. Look at them, they're young trees. Are they too closely spaced perhaps? In standing here, it may be hard to tell, but down there from the road, when you look into here, have you ever noticed the trees are all in line? Yes. This is the research forest that so many areas of the township are named after. This is where, 40 years ago or whenever it was, 50, 100, they tried out different species of pines to see which grew fastest, straightest, made the best timber, all that kind of stuff. So we still see remnants of that here, but they were, they normally, if you're going to plant for the health of the trees in the forest, you plant and then see how many come up and then you thin so that each tree has a significant amount of nutrients, water, and space available to it. Well, did they do that here? No. So out here where the trees have sort of popped up on their own, they're a little bit healthier than over here. What else did you notice? The weather. Okay. Partly cloudy, sunny. So it looks a little bit foggy up there, doesn't it?
Sure does.
Yeah. It's not as blue as we expect it to be. What else? What else did you notice?
Water oak tree.
Do what?
The water oak.
What about it?
I'm always curious. You always recognize the water by those horizontal bands going right. See the white bands going right.
Yeah.
I've never seen that difference in the document. But I can almost guarantee it's a water oak just looking at the trunk before you look at the leaves. You see that white banding.
Yeah, but tell me about that water rose. I mean, look at the epicormic shoots it's got covered in. You can see all the failed limbs and failing limbs. You can see it's got areas where the foliage is all gone. So is that tree happy? What about this guy? Same thing, only this over here. Same thing, only different. I mean, so, you know, it's got all kinds of apparent problems. Could some of this be from the freeze back in February? Sure it could. But I think it was like insult to injury. I think it added to problems that some of these trees already had. All right. Yeah.
So question.
Yes, you could. You could tell it was up there. Yes.
Question. What are those white bands? It's not an algae, is it? Or was it a fungus?
It is simply the coloration of the bark. It's one of its identifying characteristics. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's not a growth or anything
No,
like that.
nothing. It's how the bark grows.
On the water though.
Yes, on many oaks, on all kinds of trees have blotches, spots, bands. Yeah. So it's just part of how the bark grows.
It's not a fungus or anything.
Not a fungus. No. All right. We're gonna do. Normally, I would make you not only touch something but taste something else. But I'm gonna let you off since we tasted mushrooms earlier on that part, and we touched a lot of stuff while we were out. So the last thing I want you to do is find a spot. I'd suggest, if you can, at least get a little off the actual roadway, and I want you to spend about 2 or 3 minutes looking down. Only look down. I like this one. I like this one. Oh, yeah, it is. So, okay, write down what you saw. Okay, raise your hand if you caught a grasshopper. Yay. No, I don't mean saw one. I mean caught one. Did you catch a grasshopper?
You didn't tell us we could grab stuff.
Luke,
You
don't
know,
touch.
Take some initiative here, folks.
Oh my gosh. I saw a cricket.
Okay, come to me.
Okay.
So somebody tell me what you saw. Yeah. Holes in leaves. What does that mean? Some larvae have adapted to being able to use those plants, right? What else? What else did you see? Ants. Okay. Ants, spiders. Do what? Fluffy seeds.
Flowers and budding, flowering and seeding.
Okay. Several stages along in the flowering and seeding process.
Earthworm casting.
Do what?
Earthworm casting.
Earthworm
Yeah, a lot of
casting.
rust. Yeah, rust.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of that.
Earthworm poop. Yep.
Pine cones.
Pine cones. Did anybody see grasshoppers?
Yeah.
Okay.
Saw a cricket.
Saw cricket. Did anyone see an invasive species?
I wish I knew what this was. Look, there's one right there.
See this beautiful little vine? Japanese climbing fern. You think it's from here?
Like that.
No. Is it invasive? Yes. Yes, it is a true vine. If you find a fern in a vine form, it is Japanese climbing fern. We don't have any native ferns that vine. What this guy does, he ladders up the trees, he overgrows them, he uses it to reach out to the next tree and the next plant and the next thing. This is our kudzu. I mean, left alone, it will cover the world. It's not that easy to remove because it's got these fine vines. See how fine the vine itself is here. It's almost wire-like, so it's hard to pull. You can't really pull it out of the ground this way. You got to get down there and clip it right at ground level. And then because it's a non-native invasive, you definitely don't want to put this in your compost bin because this is a true fern. So it could grow from bits and pieces. So you got to put this stuff in a bag and send it to the landfill rather than putting it in for compost. And the same is pretty much true with all of our non-native invasives. You don't want to compost them. Maybe some of the woodier parts of things like privet might be okay, but don't put bits and pieces that could germinate and grow more. Because, and for goodness sake, make sure you don't put anything with seeds on it in your compost bin, because a lot of those seeds can survive through that heat of a compost pile and still be viable. So this is one of the many invasives that we're working on in the township. If you want some volunteer hours, the Invasives Task Force tries to work at least twice a month, on a weekday one time, on a weekend one time. Sometimes they get more than those 2 days in. We work on pre-approved areas of pathways and green spaces in the township that Parks and Rec has sent the forester out. He has determined that it would be safe for volunteers to help with removing some of the invasives there. There's a lot of work being done on air potato vine because they're just so pervasive in the township. So if you want some volunteer hours, you can do that. we're working on, that group is working on a project in Shadow Lake Marsh over on, so let me do this memory thing, Lake Woodlands. It's across from Shadow Bend Park, and it's a terrific little wetland area. But there is a few invasives have crept in over the years, so they're working on remediation there with a view to planting some new natives back to do some reforestation. Sometimes we get to help with reforestation, sometimes we don't, depends on what they're planting and what their schedule is. So I don't know what else to tell you today. It's all about the interactions. It's all about the interactions. You can't study one thing without knowing what it interacts with if you really want to understand that part of nature. Find out what you're interested in and then see what it associates with, interacts with, and has relationships with. Nature is so fascinating. It's, you know, I always say it's like that painted over window, and you walk up to it and you make a little scratch and you look through, and you see that what you know is this, but what's on the other side of that window is this. I mean, there's no way to know it all, but isn't it fascinating to study it and try to find out more? So anybody have any last questions for me? I hope you will consider spending time in nature, doing more real observing, making notes, journaling to yourself when you get home, or if you have the time and you're comfortable in the place you are, write down those comments to yourself about, you know, what did nature teach me today? And where am I on my road to being a naturalist? The kind of stuff is wonderful to come back and read years later. I promise you it is. Questions? Okay, well, let's go play Carolyn's game.
I got one question there.
Uh-oh, sorry.
I do have a question. Living in a neighborhood full of Chinese callows and I'm sure Japanese invasive ferns, since I'm not knowledgeable enough at this point, what I'd like to do is educate my neighborhood and invite invasive meetings in my neighborhood. Is that something that?
Sure, of course. Do you live in the township?
No.
So
I live in North County. I know that there's
So, you know, personally, I couldn't come as township, but I can come as master naturalist. Or there are plenty of other people who could come and help talk to you.
We'll make the next.
I'm working on that problem of high bacteria levels in the waterways in the town. It's hard to believe how many people don't know that they say no contact. Should not touch the water. The bacteria levels. So people don't seem to know that. So I'm working with another department in the township services, and we're trying to work through their network of neighborhood coordinators and how neighborhoods talk about dog food and try to get people to do a better job of putting it in the trash. What we're finding is people will pick up their dog's food, put it in a bag, and then toss it off into the trash. Go on. Okay,
Slow battery again.
water. But they don't see that there's something how do you think that's okay? But
Is there somebody on here?
so to help raise awareness of the issue and open doors for more conversation, we're installing storm drain markers that warn kids in the top of storm drains and 3 outdoor limits. Another great volunteering opportunity. All of that. And you know, let me know you're interested. I'll direct you to where to register. If you live in the township, I'm happy to try to assign you some resources near where you live. If you don't live in the township and are willing to come into the township, this is a Pledge initiative that our department of the township is supported by recruiting, training, and deploying volunteers. So I personally am outside township boundaries, but you could come volunteer. Let me know. In what, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, when I come back and talk about water conservation, I'll talk a little bit more about that family.
Real quickly, we're gonna go back in the classroom. So that means we're throwing-
Hey, Harris County, precinct 3 has a upgraded park. You know, John Paul Landing where you could go see the waterfowl. Okay. Well, the other side, they redid it. And so the guy told me it's gonna be 400 acres when they're done. It has the most amazing play structures for kids. And they have a nature center, a brand new one. And one of the guys that works at Heartwood too, and he goes between them. So we ran into him twice. But it has 7 miles of walking trails through waterways. So you have to drive down. It's where West Road ends into John Paul Landing and Hockley Bower. And oh my God, it's amazing. There's tons of dragonflies, but they thought this park through. So the trees that they planted were all diverse. They planted them right they put martin boxes up and they had tons of purple martins. They also had fishing piers for people. So it was really well planned. We visited it 3 times.
In the space of 3 days, is that what you're telling me?
No, some kids didn't get to go. And then we didn't know there were so many playgrounds that were brand new, so we hopped around. And all of them had different skill levels.
Yeah.
One of them's like ninja warrior.
Oh, cool.
So, but the nature center is gorgeous. I heard the kids had a blast. It was touch screens and.
We went out to the Timberland Community Center, which is where I was making service. And all of the pictures about Alabama.
Oh, boy. Yes. He takes really good pictures. That's where I fell in love with doing that. Okay.
Water done. Water, coffee, oranges, bananas.
Anybody need ice cold water?
Thank you. Yes, I told you. Good job, Howard.
Check on the AC proactively too.
Yeah. So I will get into that. Oh my gosh, you're doing a great job.
Well, you can ride your nature's way with me and then go pick up some milkweed. It's right there. Do they have?
Oh, water.
Yes, I thought some
Oh, water.
I thought the lights were on. They already laid eggs on. Oh my gosh. Well, I need to check my milkweed.
We need water.
After that, yeah. Going to nature's way. It's plant. I usually go there. Yeah, as long as you don't mind going to nature's way. Yeah, please. Yeah.
is added on. So it was on the list of things to do. Okay. First of all, for see what the
We have no burgers. Burgers? Okay, who else is a burger?
oh.
Oh, no. He's not a burger, he's our burger. Are you going to have two burgers? And a lobby? Okay. No other burgers. You need please. Yes, yes, please do. Okay, who is an outdoor adventurer? I knew it. All the outdoor adventurers are right here.
It was really hard to choose.
It's story time, right?
I don't know. Can't see my stand. That's why it's
Okay, who is an entomologist? You're my kind of girl. See you back there with Melissa. Okay,
Okay. Nice to meet you. I'm gonna just sit there. Right here we go.
Back here behind me.
I'm not tall enough to go.
You're not telling. You're getting to know this one thing, right? Here. Okay, let's see what else we have. How about naturalists and training?
All of us.
This corner. This corner. Okay.
Yeah, I am. She's not. Maybe I'm supposed to be more.
Okay.
Really?
Naturalists and training. I don't know. You look like you could be that.
What is your background? Early education.
Okay, they're on me.
I can do it. So you don't have
Okay, come stand over here with John Barker. Come stand over here, all of my botanists. Who else is botany? Now, don't let Eric believe he's actually botanist. See, that's the thing, is like Terry said, you put one string and all the other ones come with it, right? Okay, but I want you, like, wildlife biologists here. Who else? Make sure you've got everybody in the group. Everybody in the group. I'm missing a group of students, of course. The forest. Yeah, so who has forest? Okay, y'all stand with Susan. Nobody can touch me. I'm going to stick you with the botanist. With the botanist. That's kind of what I was hoping. Okay, now in your group, I want you to introduce yourselves to everyone else in your group. Take a minute, learn the names, and I'm going to quiz you. So what makes you?
Wait. They're gonna make it into stickers. I not these because they printed out fun. Look how purple they are. And then what is that for? We used it on last regard. I'm having trouble finding this. No one does this anymore. No one does that anymore. I said it's cool. So I'm thinking of redoing our
Jenny.
Do you need me to go film them next one? No, because I think he's just gonna do some. I think so. Let's find out from God. Just like
Several of them.
Hello. Are you ready? Are you ready for the hard part? Okay. My wildlife biologist. Who knows everyone's name? Name.
Melanie, Lisa, Denise, Lisa, Amy, Justin.
You know what? She had too many. Everybody in her group. Who can name everybody in this group? Kendra, who's gonna do it? And she had two students that shoot. But you all got it together. Thank you. Very, very good job, Kendra. Thank you. But there's only two.
I was over there. I was over there with them.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so tell us who you are. Who's going to say you?
This is Linda, that's Melissa.
And in my other threesome group? John and Susan and Lauren. Awesome. And in my other big group of 6 people, who knows everyone's name? Okay.
Eric,
Yeah.
Connie,
Yeah.
Dawn, Jessica, Lisa.
Awesome. Very good. Okay, now we have a group of 4 over here. Who's introducing y'all? You got it, Adam. Go for it, Adam. Yeah. Okay.
And I'm out.
And you're Adam. Very good. And my last little threesome back here. Who is it?
Mickey, Chris, you can't stay up.
Awesome, awesome. Now, what I want you to do is realize that when you're out volunteering, these are probably going to be the group that you're going to doing what you like to do. Okay? Recognize their faces and know that when you go out there, chances are you're going to see them out there doing stuff that you like to do. Okay? If you want to swap email addresses, do, because there may be times when you want to go out like for Kendra. Do you want to talk about the talking to the birds?
Oh, sure. Before I even moved to this area, I visited the jump forest and just fell in love with it. But I noticed there was litter and no place to put it. And then I understood the pack it in, pack it out philosophy, and that, you know, if you put a trash can there, then there's all kinds of illegal dumping. So I organized the Jones Forest Literati when we go out on Tuesdays and Saturday mornings. Tuesdays about
11 and 10, 11. And then Saturday morning, we have a group going out to just go around on Saturdays, we do this side of the forest and go around picking litter. On Tuesdays, we do the south side. And so we're really getting on it now. We walk around and our bags are less full these days. So people, we do get thanked very often. People will say thank you so much. And we hope we're setting a good example when people stop littering so much. It's a fun way to clean up, and also I am constantly got my phone out taking pictures of everything and identifying everything. So you learn a lot that way too.
So if you want to volunteer with Kendra, that's actually on our calendar where you can go in and sign up, and then she gets your phone number and puts you in a group text. So that way, if for some reason you can't be out in the forest, like the burning or something, she can notify you. So Kendra designed this program all on her own.
Yay, thank you,
She
Kendra.
saw the need and she said, let's do it. And she started it. And it's really coming all in buses. I know all of you are anxious to get all of your hours and volunteer hours. I just want to assure you that you will graduate in September as long as you have all of your class hours. Your volunteer hours and your advanced training hours will allow you to certify. Okay. You will get, when you graduate, a name pin. When you certify, you will get this dragon ball. You have 15 months from the start or end of class, from the start of class to get certified. Some of you, we're not talking about any overachievers. Will get doubly certified when he's got not just his 40 hours of volunteer work, but 80 hours, not just 8 hours of advanced training, but 16. He doubly certifies, so he gets the pin of the year also. Okay, so that's something else you can strive for. You can volunteer. We should have emphasized this. As soon as classes started, you could have started volunteering. Okay? So don't let too much time or too much grass grow under your feet. Get out there and do things. Find what is your passion. Look at the people in your group and figure out where they volunteer. Where did they found that interests them? Okay, Carol. Yes.
For the first certification, if I want to certify, even though it's not mandatory, by graduation, when is the cutoff date?
December 31st, 2021 for the double certification.
No, I'm talking about for the
For
initial.
the, because
for
we
the classes.
graduate on
How
September.
far in advance of graduation day do you have to have your 40 and 80 to certify on graduation?
You have the 15 months.
No,
I know.
if you want to
By
get certified
September.
on graduation day.
Graduation
When
day.
is the
September
cutoff?
11th.
September 11th, then
Yeah.
September 10th.
Yeah.
For my benefit, for checking the hours.
Yeah, September 10th makes it much easier for her. If you do it on the 11th, she'll be like.
Well, it won't happen because we'll be graduating on the 11th. So I wouldn't have done that. But yeah, let's get it by the 10th and then it'll be much easier.
I mean, if you get it by the 7th or 8th,
It'll be
it's-
easier.
she has to-
I encourage you to log your hours every week, and I've been doing it every 2 weeks and it gets harder if you forget. So write your stuff down and then, maybe Saturday morning, get up and log your hours. On Sundays, I go in and just kind of do everything on Sundays. So that way you're all caught up and I know where we're at for the next class or whatever. So.
And Carolyn, I want to comment that everyone has their own motivation for doing stuff. And I personally know of some master naturalists who get their 40 hours in every year just to get the pin, because those pins are year specific. After 2021, that pin will never be available again. You only get it this year. And some people do their hours to get the pin. Think about it as that's just a bonus. That's not really why you would want to do the hours. That's not really why you want to do the volunteering. That's not why you want to be that participant in nature. The pin is just a nice reflection that you did those many hours or more. So just saying.
Yeah, right.
Yes. Is there a place that has it listed on the website? Like, you do this many hours for this day, you get this thing, and a list of those.
For the
For the pins.
For the pins?
When you get what?
There is, So what you're talking about is the other dragonflies?
Milestones?
The milestones?
All the milestones that you would get, whether it's certification, level, whatever.
Right. If there's a.
There's not a time frame for that. It's when you have reached turning in 250 hours of cumulative. You get a pin, you get whatever it is, 500, you get a pin, 1,000, you get a pin, 2,500, you get a pin, 5,000, you get a pin.
You can go to the state website, the txmn.org, and they show all the pins for all the milestones and for all the years. You can see what pins you missed out is. I don't want to know about.
There's no timeline on your milestone. There's no timeline on milestones.
No time. I can't wear it.
Stephen's gonna have a 250 milestone before he graduates.
Yeah.
I'm positive of
He's
that,
gonna be doubly certified.
but with a milestone.
With the
Dragonfly,
milestone.
the
So-
dragonfly is the only one that's one time.
The dragonfly, this dragonfly
Each year?
is,
And that's only this year.
this dragonfly is when you certify for the first time.
Okay.
Okay?
That's for everybody.
Recertification, which is the other
That's-
40 hours, is the year.
How about that gold dragon?
That's
a
1,000 hours.
just 1,000.
Okay, so you get.
So which
additional
one is this
dragonflies
year?
or, yeah.
This is this year, it's the side up dragon. And like Terry said, this is just bling for the sake of bling,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Don't
so
do it for the pin.
we don't, yeah. We do it because the pins are pretty, you know? and-
I have 21 of them.
Terry can't wear hers because she has to walk like this. So that's
I've been
issue.
doing this so long
Yeah.
that I was a master naturalist the first year they started giving.
Which was
Yes.
2001.
2001.
So yes, so pins are really great because when you go to the annual meeting and you have a bunch of pins on, you're like, oh, that's so cool, you know?
And you can recognize others who have a lot of pins, because we're all walking like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yes, yes. Yes,
Sure.
Melissa. Oh, no.
It's happens all the time with it smells. With doing like the field ID and whatnot, using like iNaturalist, I haven't found anywhere where it actually states how many hours like can you log for doing.
Let me talk about that for a minute.
Yes.
And I will, since y'all are interns for the next, I'll come to one of the next classes and bring that paper on iNaturalist. There's some rules on iNaturalist. So it can't be, it has to be a project. So say Jones Forest is saying, we're gonna do a project this week, and Sunday we're gonna come out and use iNaturalist and identify every plant we can. That counts as field research for Jones Forest. Now, if you get up one morning and say, I'm gonna go to Jones Forest and just do iNat all day, that doesn't count. It doesn't count in your backyard.
Okay, that's what I was confused with.
So it has to be a project. Now we can make a project. You can all say, hey, you want to meet out at Club Woods or wherever and go hiking and, or what is the loop, do the loop that we did. And you identify everything that counts as iNaturalist.
If it's reported in, if you're
In a project.
You have to report it. Don't go do it. And you're working with a project or on the loop. We want Terry's project, Terry Sinn's project. And then don't go report it because then
It defeats the purpose.
it defeats the purpose. And then you lose, you don't get those hours, you know, you have to log the data to get
Is
the
it
hours.
the same thing with the other apps,
Which
like the
ones?
bird one?
Okay, the same thing with eBird. So we have the Christmas birding. We have several projects for birding. Backyard bird count, hummingbird. If you want something like that, send me an email.
Well, I did. I don't understand it. That's why I'm asking.
Okay, no, for
Like,
specific
you
for
listed specific
eBird,
things, so it's like that's why I didn't understand.
Okay.
How you count anything.
you can't count those, but you can count backyard hummingbirds right now. I mean, if it's still going on, they'll have a date on the website. Didn't I send you the hummingbird one? Or maybe
Sent me
that
a lot
was
of them, but I
Ruth.
didn't quite comprehend anything.
So-
A lot of them
so
said
now,
projects.
if you
so-
want to sit in the back porch with a glass of wine and count hummingbirds, you can do that. If you want to count hours, you have to report it in.
into the
to
hummingbird
that
site.
project.
Yeah.
On
That has to be
If you don't
tied to a
report it in to that project, you just did it.
And here's the thing, I don't go to those projects to see if you put data in. But we can all go look each other up by our little IDs on like iNat or whatever. But
Yeah.
it's by honesty. I mean,
No, but all of them are
We
on
don't-
specific projects.
they do. They do. And maybe at graduation, I can give y'all all a paper that has everything on it. It might be easier that way. And
Everything is the only thing that has an active project right now, because all of them.
How many-
looks like we're empty.
well, they run in season. So feeder watch starts in February and we log weekly for feeder watch, but then it ends. They extended it because of pandemic. And I don't know if it ended. I quit watching birds. I took my feeders down because we had diseases. So a lot of people took their feeders down. So there was really no more feeder watch. All of those sites are separate and I'll compile them for y'all and that it'll make it easier for you. So,
One thing I noticed is,
yeah, it takes time.
you always have to go into iNaturalist on your computer in order to log in with hours, because I can't get it on.
You can take photos. You can be out at the forest all day taking photos with your camera. Go home, upload it, and then you log that time.
Yes,
Okay, but you don't have to use your phone. Actually, most cameras will give you the date and time of where you were.
What I'm saying is you take a picture with your phone, then you go to your computer. It's very easy.
Yeah.
You just go to your computer, you upload to iNaturalist right away,
Yeah, it's there.
and then it's already in there.
If you're trying to identify something,
And then you just, but you have to have the app on the computer.
Yeah.
You have to have the program on the computer in order to put your hours into that program.
you don't have to do that.
Well, for adopted.
Okay, adopted loop's different. And again, let me compile that stuff for you with a little bit more information. And that way I can just give you a piece of paper and you can put it, wherever you log hours, you can go, oh,
I can't get it on my phone.
Doing something and all of a sudden somebody's adding your pictures to their project.
Oh, that's nice.
So like I was at Martin Dives and I was taking some
Okay,
pictures.
some
and
projects
every
are
time I
open.
turned around, they were added to the project.
they're open projects. So sometimes you have to log into the projects like the adopted loop. You can pull that up and you can just start going on that.
You might have been within their Wi-Fi.
Yeah. And
Okay, and then there's one that's like Texas Flora or something, and it's constantly.
each
pinging.
park you go to, when you open up iNat, you might just pull up projects and it'll automatically pull them up for the ones in that area. So if I'm at Brazos Bend, it'll pull up dragonflies or birds or plant life. So that works also. You can also log the hours that you do by identifying things on iNaturalist. So if you go on iNat, we need identifiers a lot. So if you go log in and you go help identify things that aren't identified, then you can get hours for that. Now, I'm not saying go on there and identify something that's been
Like a cardinal 3 times.
3 times. A cardinal has been identified 4 times. So, and be nice too, because some people are beginners and we do have some snarky people that go on there and they jump you pretty quickly and tell you, you should have known this is not even in this state. No, I'm joking. I'm guilty of getting those comments to me sometimes. Yes. So when you pull something up and you're logging it, be careful, look at it. And when when you pull something up, it has a suggestion and you think, I'm not sure if it's that, then click on it. It'll go over to the side and tell you, oh no, that's only found in Australia or something. Okay, well, obviously it's not here for the most part. So that it's not that, and you can further investigate to find out what it is. But all of this stuff, it takes time to learn it. So don't get discouraged. It's just, once you learn it, it'll come easy to you. And I mean, we all had struggles with it. So, and then they're going to change it. We're going to struggle again. So that's how it works. It keeps us on our toes.
Melissa, do you know the native plants in Texas? They have the pollinator garden. I think it's at Ed Barton Park.
Yes, that's where.
Is that sponsored or connected to where we can log our volunteer hours for that?
It will be.
It will be. And the Native Plant Society, if you're going over there and you're a member of the Native Plant Society, then you can log those under Native Plant Society. I have to go and look at all the different codes that we have. Yeah, if we don't have that, I don't think we do have that.
Under RM, we may not.
We may not, because it's new. We don't have.
You do on a couple things.
Did Brenda put them on there? Because I didn't put them.
I think I've logged a couple, because I've gone online and attended meetings.
If you see something that doesn't have a code, send me an email and then I'll email the appropriate person to make sure we get those codes. And I think it's Brenda right now.
Yeah.
And then we'll add the code if it fits our need. Now, remember, it has to fit our mission statement and all that other kind of stuff. It has to be native. So, yes.
Who is in charge of the pollinator garden here?
Oh, that is Terry Finch and Brenda Reeves. And they will, if you want me to shoot you their email so you can get in touch with them and join onto their group. Did you already ask me to do that here? Somebody here did.
No, I don't think so, but we were discussing that, like, we work Monday to Friday jobs.
Right.
And so volunteering is a little more difficult.
Right.
But I could easily come up here on a Sunday evening or a
And so-
Thursday evening and like,
And weed through the garden.
oh,
because
yeah.
it's
So
amazing.
I can speak to that since I was there at the one the other week. So, like Bruce is here. Oops, the sun's gone. Basically, they said if you want to do anything to like, upkeep, like weeding and stuff, it doesn't really matter when you come. You might want to just kind of, just ensure you're here during daylight hours, more or less. But like the pollinator garden is just right over there. If
okay,
you
so
walk
it's not just this around the building.
No.
No,
There's
so-
there's a-
No,
there's a-
no,
there's a
no.
pollinator
It's the one with the bench and the little
Okay.
pond
Is that
out
all
thingy.
of the path?
Yeah, I can show you guys right after this. But if you do have a time to where you are free on a Tuesday, you don't even kind of need her email. Just drop in literally at 9 a.m. And just show up and we'll kind of show you the ropes. 'Cause I did it a bit more last year than I did this year because I don't really know what I'm doing with plants yet, honestly. So that's why I'm kind of skeptical. But if someone does want to do it on weekends, I would love to do that bit on top of like load our oddity. Like, let's just connect and make a group and just like do things on the weekends.
Yeah, I'd be worried to come up without them because I'd be like, I don't know what you want me to
So
do.
the only thing is, I will specify is Connor and all the employees are usually here during the week. And since I don't generally know what I'm doing, that's why I've asked, like when I've come on the last Tuesday I was here. And they have specific things that they want done.
So you can
But
also,
we could coordinate with the Tuesday people, sorry.
oh, no worries. I mean, there's also like the opportunity to pick a park by you. Like, so like Jesse Jones, for instance, like they'll log your hours on Club Woods, they log your hours that you sign up for. So, you can go and they'll direct you on stuff that you can do. And you sign in and you log your hours there. And the only thing you have to be careful of is of double dipping. So
Double
just
dipping.
make sure that you're telling them it's for TN